Hello, my fruity little mango.
Whoa!
As I eat fruity little mangoes.
Oh, I was like, wow, that brain of yours is miraculous.
No, every time I eat fruit and a fruit is nearby, I do have to say something about it, though. So, and you're one of them. So.
Here I am.
I went to Erewhon recently.
Oh, God. Is this a stand-up bit? I don't think I have time or energy for this.
Wow. Sounds like you don't want to hear my story.
What's the deal with Erewhon?
Sounds like you don't want to hear my story.
I don't, but go ahead.
Oh. Okay, I'll tell you later when you're in a better mood. It's a good one. You're really missing
everyone
out.
suffer with me, so I guess tell it now.
I just wanted to say that I've been to Erewhon recently.
That was your story?
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, you were right. That was a killer.
I never said there was going to be a lead up. You're the one who made it sound like I was about to do some routine. You're the one that let everyone down, my friend. I just wanted to say I got my mango from Erewhon. Beyond.
Okay, you're right. I should have lowered the bar for your storytelling. Anyway, yes, Em went to Erewhon. I saw it on your Basic Bitch stories on Instagram, which I love.
I love Basic Bitch Day.
I know. And like Erewhon, if you're not familiar, is an LA grocer. High-end luxury items. They're very fucking expensive. I think I bought cashews there because I like needed cashews for something and they were like $60. I was like, hell no.
Yeah, the smoothies there they start at like $25 each. Like,
oh my God.
I know. But we were having a Basic Bitch Day.
There's no choice.
You gotta have a treat yourself day every now and then.
That could have been the story. A $25 smoothie. That's crazy. But
I was not going to say something like that after you started with criticizing my story. I was not going to be like, and then I spent $50 on smoothies, because that would have just been worse.
It sounded like a stand-up bit when you said, I went to Erewhon recently as the opening line of our podcast.
Well, we hadn't had a Basic Bitch Day in a while, so I decided that
I was very into that. I feel like if I do that here, all there is like Chipotle, the mall. Actually, those are both pretty fun. I could do that. It won't be quite Erewhon level, but
Chipotle and the mall are too regular of things that I do. But on Basic Bitch Day, it's
elevated.
A yes day for myself, because usually I don't step foot in an Erewhon, and but there on Basic Bitch Day, who am I to say no to me?
No rules.
Yeah. What have you done recently? Make it a stand-up routine.
Nothing even remotely as interesting.
What did you do? That's not true. Yesterday we FaceTimed and I saw that you just...
Oh, what about this?
What?
I saw a baseball flying through the air.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, hold on. Let me start over.
It sounds hysterical.
It is. Let me start over. Hold on. Let me think about how it goes.
Wait, are you telling someone else's joke? Is that what's happening? Man. I don't feel so bad about my story anymore. At least mine was original.
Okay. I saw Wait, hold on.
Oh my God. There once was a man from Peru. Start there.
Okay.
Yes.
I couldn't tell what kind of ball was flying through the air, and then it hit me. You did not. How do you know which one's crickets? How do you even remember?
It's the one I press the most on this show.
That's so cruel. Oh, cruel and unusual. Anyway, welcome to our comedy podcast. It's very funny.
I will say the real comedy was yesterday when we were FaceTiming, and I kept trying to talk to Leona, and she was just so busy absolutely facing her bottle, and it looked just like mommy. It was
She does not
Just
drink
chug,
out of
chug,
a
chug.
bottle, does she?
What was she drinking out of yesterday?
I'm just trying to remember. Oh, just her water cup. Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
I was
couldn't
like,
tell. It was directly in the air. It was
Yeah,
upside down,
she's-
going down.
she's facing that water. Yeah.
She's
yeah,
staying
yeah.
hydrated. And
She is. I'm proud of her for that.
she also needs to stay hydrated because the only other thing she was eating was like a massive chocolate bunny. So she was having a great day yesterday.
What happened was Em got on the phone and I was distracted, and Leona knows the moment I'm distracted, she can kind of, figure out
Get away with it.
Yeah, and so she walks back in. I'm like cooking her dinner actively. She walks in with this fucking chocolate bunny. I'm like, where did you A, get that? B, it's July. C, like, how did you even reach it? And D, absolutely not. And then a giant bite came off the bunny. So,
and then counted every single chocolate egg that came out of your cabinet on top of the chocolate bunny, and there was like a baker's dozen of chocolate eggs.
Sure was. I did have to promptly.
Yeah, is there a tactic with a little kid to like get those? I mean, when there's 13, I guess you could almost hide 4 of them and leave 9 right away because they can't tell a difference. Like, how do you slowly, like, gradually remove all of them so she doesn't get sad?
Oh, I
that
mean,
she's
they're
not
like
eating them?
they're like a goldfish. Like they turn around and you just sweep them away. Typically, she's not going to be like. I mean, when it's chocolate, she might remember, but typically it's like the next thing showed up. Like Pete the cat is suddenly on TV, and that matters more. And as I was making noodles, and all of a sudden she's like, "I want noodles," and I'm like, "Okay." And so she had no interest anymore in the chocolate bunny. So it's like,
I see.
You're just playing kind of a loser's game all the time.
Now that's funny.
Yeah. It's not really, but it might be for you. It's not for me, but you know what? That's okay.
I feel like I do the same thing with Allison with salt and vinegar chips, where like if I just slowly if I get them away one by one, she almost thinks she ate all of them. So
she'll never notice.
she'll never notice until 5 minutes later when she walks back to the pantry and sees it again. But
And goes, wait a minute.
hang on,
I'm not 2. I know what I was eating.
Well, she got distracted with Bridgerton or something. That's
I was gonna say, put a show on. There
it's
you
like
go,
Pete the
Bridgerton.
Cat, yeah.
It's easy enough. It's honestly, we're all just giant toddlers stumbling around.
Isn't it funny? A lot of times, if I'm confused about something, I just go, I really like. There's the sound that people use on TikTok, but it's true. Like, I'm just a baby. Like, I don't really know.
I don't
like,
understand why you expect more of me than what you would expect of a 2-year-old.
I'm new here. Like, I just got here. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even know where I am. So if someone could help me.
Yeah, but how would I trust anyone else? Because they're also new here. So
Great point.
Oy, oy, oy.
We're
Well,
all fucked.
Is there a reason why you drink, and whether or not there's an answer to that? What do you drink?
Wow. I forgot my water and all
Gulp
my
of
other
air. Okay.
beverages. Sorry, that was horrible. Jack, can you put like a bleep that sound out? I just made a slurp noise, and it feels like that will be really unpleasant for a lot of people. So if we could just bleep that out like a curse word, that would be
I thought it was quite nice.
fantastic. Maybe that'll be like Patreon only content. Mouth
Yeah,
noises.
now we're getting into OnlyFans territory. If you want to hear Christine slurping,
Terrible.
please pay behind the wall.
It's just M. It's just M. That's the only person.
It's just that and your toes, man. I don't know.
What can? Ew. Oh, like holding toes together.
People have been sending us. I don't know.
like. See why?
People
No,
have
they
been
don't.
sending me videos of them holding toes now.
You're
I think
so
to just get in on the joke, but I appreciate that someone will do it. You know.
Oh my God. Well, I don't. So anyway, why do you drink?
Besides the toe thing.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like we've given 75 reasons already, so don't feel pressured. But
Well, I feel a little stressed because we're trying to design this stupid house that we paid for, and man, I hate that. I always thought I was prepared after the years of Sims, but I actually don't know what I'm doing.
isn't it so
And-
frustrating when you're like, well, shit, this isn't as drag and drop as I'd hoped.
It really makes me feel truly like I'm just a baby. I just got here. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm like, why did someone let me buy a house?
Who let you do that? Yeah.
Yeah, and also between the two of us, Allison is not. This is not like a jab at her. Just it is open public knowledge that she is not the conceptualizer of the two of us, and when it comes to designing, she gets frustrated very easily. Even if it were just like redoing a closet. She can't like see things unless it's like physically in front of her. And so with Love, she is not much help because she keeps getting frustrated, but then I'm getting frustrated because I don't know like what. There's just so many things that I feel like
tough for her coming from a family of architects to not conceptualize.
And she's the baby of the family. I think all the skill was just kind of slurped out, if you know what I mean. And then,
Jack.
and by the time she was born, there was no architect skill left. It had already gone to everybody else. You know,
that is pretty sensible to me. That sounds like how it works.
That is what I think the science does. So. Yeah. But I mean, luckily she's got so many people in her corner that can do it for her and like also by proxy do it for me. So that's been very nice.
Maybe she's pretending. She's like, help me. I don't know how.
Maybe because there's so many architects since she was the baby, she didn't even need to like develop the skill. Yeah, they were just like, I got it.
Yeah. Exactly.
So what I've been doing is a lot of arts and crafts I've been building dioramas so that way she can see the options.
Yeah.
Which has been helpful, but also very time consuming because I'm making dioramas while also trying to design a house.
Do that digitally, but okay.
Probably. But guess what? I'm new to this. I'm just a little guy. I don't really know. So
you can make a diorama. Wow.
That's one thing I know how to do. I don't know. My prop skills have been coming out, I guess.
Point.
But anyway, so just designing a house is very time consuming. And by the time this comes out, I'm sure I will have found a digital version of this. So I just want to warn everyone before I get the same link a bunch of times.
I was going to say, you're going to get a million texts. I mean, you can literally just Google like home design software and it'll be like a trillion.
I know, but a lot of them had like the free trial thing, and I always forget to cancel the free trial, so I don't want to get looped into something. So anyway, I was just being hard-headed, I guess, about accessing that. But that's why I drink, because designing things is not The Sims. Go figure.
Sucks.
And I'm drinking an LD. And I was ready. I've been waiting to crack her for you. If you want to do the countdown.
3, 2, 1. Oh, that was a good one. That was a good one.
And now we can officially start our podcast. Woohoo!
Finally.
I have. I hope you're in high spirits because I've got you in a UFO story today.
Take me higher.
Is that what would you sing like Creed as you were being beamed up? Can you take me higher?
I think I would sing Creed under any and most circumstances upon which I was woken up in the middle of the night. It doesn't really matter what.
You and every other millennial's father would sing Creed at any given opportunity, I think.
That's right. It's just the first thing that comes to mind.
Is that Creed?
I don't know.
In my head, it gives Creed energy if it's not Creed.
But I mean, I think it's Can You Take...
If it's not, it's the only song that wasn't on the Creed discography that my father listened to. So
yeah, that is by Creed. For sure, for
okay.
sure. For sure.
Don't
ever doubt yourself again, Em.
Girl, every day's a new adventure. I can't make promises. But thank you for the motivation.
You're so welcome.
This is the story of the Allagash Four.
What's that?
It's a team name, like the Avengers.
Oh, yeah.
Except everyone gets abducted. So there are 4 people here. Ironically, 2 of them have the same name, and 2 of them are twins. So that might be tricky.
I'm assuming 2 of them that are named the same are not the twins.
Right. That's where it gets extra tricky. They've all got a little too much in common, but in different ways.
That would be really ideal for me if it was just twins John and John. So you just don't worry about it.
Jim and Jack.
I was close enough. Jim and Jack are the twins? Are you serious?
Are the twins.
Oh
yeah.
My gosh.
And then the other 2 people are both
and
Charles.
Wait. Charles, neither twin has the same name. I thought one of the twins was going to be overlapping. But no,
there's 2 twins who have similar twin names,
Jim
and
then
Jack. There's also 2 people both named Charles.
Okay, I guess I can handle that. Charles, Jim, and Jack.
We're gonna go with Charlie and Chuck.
Okay, then rewind. Charles, Chuck, Jim, and Jack.
Just so we can keep our Charleses straight.
I guess we've got to.
And And to make it just a little funny, because apparently I'm like a middle school boy on a playground, Jack and Jim's last name is Wiener. So that anytime I see that, it won't ever fully leave me. If someone's last name is Wiener, part of me goes, hoo hoo, and then I never think about it again. But in the moment, I go,
I
Wiener.
think about it. Because remember that guy who sent a dick pic and then his last name is Wiener? And I was like, wow, you really just walked right into that one.
It was a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It sure was. So, okay, so the Wiener twins and the two Charles. And the Charles twins. Yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah. So there's Jim, Jack, Charlie, and Chuck. And they were all born in the early 50s, late 40s. And they meet in 1976. In Massachusetts when they all at some point go to college there and they kind of overlap. After college, so they're all living in Massachusetts, or Jim and Jack are living in Massachusetts. One of the Charles is living in Massachusetts. Another one moves to Vermont, but still, I guess, visits often to see his friends that he made while he lived in Massachusetts. So one of them's in Vermont, but it's a New England story. And basically, Chuck, he goes to the Allagash Wilderness Waterway. He is very into camping. He's very into nature.
Now,
and the yes.
Just for clarity, is Chuck the one who lives in Massachusetts or Vermont?
Great question. Chuck is the Vermont man.
Oh, okay. So he's visiting and he goes to this.
Yeah, he goes. So the Allagash Waterway is in Maine. So Sorry, I did not make that clear.
What's happening?
Like, it's a whole road trip. Buy our book. So
they're like, not if it's like this.
It might be. I can't honestly. So they're all from Massachusetts. Homeboy moves to Vermont, and he does a trip to Maine.
Okay, got it.
And the Allagash Wilderness Waterway is 92 miles long. It goes through northern Maine. It's actually, it also is one of the ends of the Appalachian Trail. Or it's in the same state park where the Appalachian Trail either begins or ends, depending on what direction you're coming from. But so he goes there. He has a great time. He comes back to Massachusetts, or I don't know what you do in 1976, but the equivalent of texts his friends in Massachusetts, sends a fax, I guess. And he says...
he faxes his friends, yep.
And he says, this Allagash Wilderness Waterway is the best place I ever did go. We must return. All of us together.
Period. Stop. Sorry, I'm trying to do like telegraph. How do you do telegram?
Oh.
Well, that's a typewriter.
Oh.
No, that's a fax. I'm talking about a telegram where you go stop.
I don't know. I could do beep 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 beep. That's Morse code.
I guess you're misunderstanding me. What I'm saying is that I was already doing the sound. I don't know why you keep doing new ones.
You're right. I was just having fun.
I'm saying, like, I feel like you took it as me yelling stop at you. I wasn't yelling stop at you. I was saying like Allagash Four, stop. Excellent place, stop. You know how they would send and they write
you are
stop?
talking to someone who has never written a telegram, so I just think I don't know what it looks like.
I mean, I don't think anyone knows what it looks like, but you've never heard that? Stop?
Mm-mm.
Wait, what?
I've heard the word stop, but I don't know what you're talking about. What is like it's like the word stop is written on the telegram so they know that that's the end of the sentence?
Yeah, like you say stop and that's like the period or whatever.
Interesting.
Okay,
I did not know that. You're teaching. I really didn't know.
Well, now I'm worried I'm just screwing it all up, but I thought that's what you do.
I think you're right. Okay, so here's the thing. I actually have sent a telegram, but it was so...
What? Okay, so you're the only fucking person in the world who sent a telegram, and you made a dumb comment about, well, sorry, I've never sent a telegram. It's
no,
wait,
because
you're the only one who has.
No, because I sent a telegram. It was to my ex. It was actually, ironically, the very last message I ever sent
song?
her.
Telegram to my ex? No, that sounds like a fucking pop UK pop band. Telegram to my ex.
It was a like a digital company where they were like, you send an old school telegram, and so all I did was like send like an email, and then they converted it and everything and sent like a proper telegram. Allegedly, I never heard about it because by the time it got to her, we broke
It's
up.
probably not there yet. It's probably still in the works. It's probably like in the telegram wires, like slow. Well, because I assume it's the only telegram, so it's probably just slowly like meandering across the country.
You know what?
And then it'll show up, and she'll be like, "What's this?" And it'll just say, "Stop." And you'll be like,
by
done.
now she's married with a kid, so it's really
Makes it
taking
even
its
more
sweet
exciting.
time to get to her.
Yeah.
Whoops. But okay, now that you're saying it, it's kind of.
Oh my God! I just figured it out. I mean, I didn't figure it out. And NBC News told me, but apparently people would save money by using the word "stop" instead of periods to end sentences because punctuation cost extra, but a 4-character word was free.
Now this is the fun fact I wanted. Thank you for setting this up.
Oh, thank God I Googled that. That's such a fun fact.
Also, imagine texting and like the punctuation is extra, is like charges extra. I would be like,
yeah. I mean, it used to when we were in middle school, and then our parents would get like a huge crazy bill, you know?
Yeah, I feel like the stop versus the period is the equivalent of us saying text me after 9.
Yeah,
like, but not
TTYL
before.
at 9.
Yeah.
That was our version of stop.
Okay, well, yes, thank you for the fungication. Because
You're so welcome. I didn't do it on purpose, but I'm glad we're here.
Well, anyway, he sends a telegram, probably using the same service I did,
Yeah.
I guess. And he says, this Allagash situation is just so fun. We have to come back together, all as friends. Is that my phone?
I'm so scared. What's happening over there?
My alarm's
You
going
know
off.
everybody, because that's also my alarm. I feel like everybody in the listening just went thinking.
You know what's weird is that's not even the alarm that I usually do. It's the Back to the Future sound, or the Avengers.
That's my
song.
alarm, so I don't know how you got that on your phone.
I've never heard that alarm go off on my phone, and I don't know why an alarm would go off right now.
What does it mean?
I hate
it's
that.
11:30.
Is it did the telegram finally go through?
We were supposed to record an hour later than we are, so you probably set one to wake up for the next time.
Oh, well, she's off now.
Good morning.
Yoo-hoo. Okay, so they all agree they're gonna go. Actually, fun fact, apparently he only said that to the twins and then said, actually, you know what, we need a fourth to help carry the
I was
canoe.
gonna say someone to carry the shit. Yes, Charles. I guess like he can prove himself if he wants.
So their plan was to go up to the big mountain there, and which apparently is a mile high. I don't know in the world of mountains if that's tall or not. To me, it sounds like a feat. But they were like, we're gonna go climb this mountain, and then we're gonna spend the rest of the day.
5,000 feet.
Nailed it.
I mean, 5,280 feet.
280 feet. Yeah. I don't. That sounds like 5,280 steps.
Yeah.
Which uphill, which I don't really want to do. So
no, thank you.
To me, that's a flat
It's a
no.
pass. That's actually a very steep no.
It's a free stop, if you will.
A free stop.
As if we're a telegram.
Yeah.
We're gonna climb up this mountain, and if that wasn't enough for everybody, we're going to also go canoeing that day because apparently the Allagash area is a huge canoe port.
Okay.
And then we're gonna keep staying outside for like another 10 days. That was that's see that if I got that telegram, I wouldn't even send a telegram back. I'd rip that one up.
I would just send the word
I'd
stop
say,
over and
"That's a
over because
prank."
apparently it's free. And be just like, they'll send this to them. They'll get it. They'll know what it means. And it would actually just be a bunch of ellipses, like ... You know, like
oh yeah, you know what's so funny is like that feels like that had to be a technique people actually use. It's like, oh, here's a free telegram I can send people, and it was how you like, I don't know, broke up with people or something.
yeah. I mean, you did that. You just
that feels
said.
like. Well, actually, it was the last nice letter I ever sent her.
Oh, no wonder you never heard about it.
Yeah, exactly. And then I sent not so nice letter, and that
Why are
is-
you always sending letters, you weirdo?
I needed. Well, that's a long
I know.
story.
I already know
But
it,
there-
and I just keep.
there was a reason for
I just
it.
keep
There-
prodding you, like Really? Why? I'm like, I was there. I know. I was your
If anyone wants to know my last relationship, it ended with a Dear John
or
letter.
did it?
Whoops.
Because we never know if it arrived. Because
for all I know, I'm still dating
it's
her.
in the
I don't know.
Telegram. Well, then she's
She'll find
cheating
out
on
soon
you
enough.
with this husband, with this partner, or
Yeah,
children.
Actually, I owe her another letter. Hang on. I gotta
Stop.
I'm gonna get to writing. Okay, so they say, Charlie, you can come too because we're gonna go canoeing. We need someone to carry a part of the canoe.
Nice.
So all four of them go. Somehow he finds three people in a circle that all want to do a week and a half long trip canoeing.
Wow.
And so they get there, they climb the mountain. Somehow that's like the best thing to happen to them during this whole trip. Then they start canoeing, and the first night, because I guess they were really canoeing. They were going from like spot to spot to spot. And then camping before they kept canoeing the next day. I can't imagine
Sounds
how
like
that's
my
fun,
nightmare.
but okay. So imagine on like day 8 and your arm cramps and you can't how do you? Now you're stranded.
Well, no, you got
know?
Charles, Chucky boy.
Oh,
He's the
you got the
he's
muscle.
the brawn. He's there for this exact reason, so I can lounge with my sunglasses, get a little tan. He can canoe me down the river.
You're like, oh, my arms.
Like,
they hurt so
ow,
much.
that is ow. I'm just have really weak tendons.
I would intentionally run into the oars so that way I had an injury
Run
and
into
couldn't
them.
paddle anymore.
You would get out of the boat into the water and run into the oar.
Like if I were sitting in the back part, I would pretend that one of their paddles
Just
hit
hit
me, and I go,
yourself
"Oh no!"
I think you can just pretend to injure yourself, but I would like to see you get hit by an oar intentionally.
If it kept me from having
I
to
guess if
canoe
it
for 2 more
kept
days,
the
I would
story
absolutely
believable.
do it.
Yeah, some physical comedy might be required.
So they get to their first spot after canoeing, and they set up a fire. And at one point, they look up at the sky and they see this giant orb of fire hovering over the trees. And Jim clearly took a pottery class in college because his quote describing this was, "It resembles the quality of light you see in a pottery kiln at cone 10 around 2,350 degrees Fahrenheit."
Okay,
I
weirdo.
went,
I feel like
You're someone's stepdad immediately.
Yeah, immediately. I feel like you are so fucking right about they went to college and like it's the 70s. Of course they took a fucking pottery class. Like that
know.
fits so well.
They apparently that was his first way to describe it. I think the point he was trying to get to was like it looks as white hot as something in a pottery kiln, but he didn't have to go into the degrees and what level, and
It just feels a little much, but all right, I get it. I guess you got to put that liberal arts degree to use, you know.
You know how there's always one person who's really, really into their elective class. I think he's just trying to force that he's
to work.
He's trying to prove that he is passionate about this.
Aww.
So anyway, he loves pottery, I guess, and he said it resembled something at cone 10. And the ball of fire is now levitating in the sky from the trees. And the fire, which is so weird, he says that he watched the fire slowly extinguish from the outside in. So he watched it kind of the fire shrink away.
Whoa.
So that's a cone 0 last I checked, but
wow.
And
Ooh.
they saw this thing, they saw it kind of fizzle out in the sky, and they went, "That's crazy." And then they just kept canoeing for the next few days.
What did they say in the 70s for crate? Like they'd be like,
far
that's
out.
far out. That's radical.
Radical, I feel was 80s, but groovy was very 70s.
Groovy is good. That's groovy. Okay.
Honestly, if someone ever said anything I was wearing was groovy, I think I would get
Do you have
butterflies.
any idea what you're saying? In high school,
Yes.
we always wore uniforms. I wore pink pants one day, and the boy I had a crush on told me my pants were groovy, and we started dating the next day. It's
So
not
you were
even
dating a
joke.
time traveler.
No, just a not nice guy, but
Oh, he was being mean?
no, he's just not a nice guy in general. But he said
Oh, okay.
my pants were groovy, and it worked. I was like, okay, we're dating now.
I would have literally giggled and kicked my feet in the air.
I
would have been
it
so
was
excited.
the most ridiculous. Or maybe you know what he said? They're out of this world, That's what he said.
Ooh.
That's what it was. Not groovy. Although
Ooh.
I feel like he used that word a lot too. Yeah, he said your pants are out of this world. And like it was an out of uniform day. So it's like very rare that I even got to wear cool colored pants. So that was like a really big moment for me.
Similar to Out of This World, one time I got told that something I was wearing was interstellar.
Okay, fine. You just have to one up me. I get it.
I'm saying I think that was my Out of This World moment and that's probably why it tickles me so much, because I remember how Interstellar made me feel.
It really is. If you have a special word as a compliment, like it elevates it to the next level. Try it out, folks. Say something like, wow, you look resplendent today, you know?
Oh.
But it's important you don't say it
my.
with any hint of irony. Otherwise, they will think you're mocking them.
Yeah. But you also have to be prepared to have that conversation, because you won't know what to say. So you'll go, "Oh, groovy. Are we trying like new words now?" Like someone's gonna say something about the word being used, and it's probably gonna be you.
And then you can say, "Well, you should listen to this podcast," and then we get more listeners. It's a win-win, win-win.
Oh, great, great. You and your marketing, I love that. Okay,
so good at it.
So, so 2 more nights pass by after they've seen this fireball in the sky. They don't even mention it. Like, they just think like, oh, remember that really groovy fucking interstellar thing that happened in the sky?
Literally interstellar thing. Yeah.
Wait,
they're
world.
both. Well, no wonder I thought, I was like, oh, someone said that to me. No, I was thinking groovy and alien. And then the Venn diagram in the middle is interstellar. Yeah.
We were making fun of them, but now I can't tell if they would have said that because it was the 70s or because this is
aliens,
themed,
right? Yeah.
So 2 nights later, they're canoeing, and I don't know if they're just bad at planning or what, but apparently they now have no more food. And they've only been canoeing for like 2 days.
What the fuck? Just because you carry the most, Chuck, doesn't mean you get the most food. God.
Yeah, he was probably like doing the chips and the cookie,
one at a time.
Chocolate thing. One at a time. No one notices if I'm only eating one at a time. So he, the 4 of them, maybe they still had food, but they were like rationing it. And so for that night, they didn't have any more food. They didn't like have a starvation situation happen. So I think they were just rationing.
There's no Donner Party. Okay, good.
But they decided, for food tonight, since we don't have any left for dinner, let's go night fishing. And
sure.
They were like, let's go on
snipe
another
hunting
adventure
while we're at it.
Yeah.
Go catch yourself some dinner.
It was so dark that they decided they were going to set up a fire at their campsite, so that way when they were out in the water, they could keep orienting themselves about where shore was. Yeah, I think that was smart. And that way they had something to follow back when they got back. And they set this like huge, raging, roaring fire. That way, if they were out for a while, the fire would still be going when they came back to shore.
Okay.
Well, they all get in one canoe together, which had to be like crammed like sardines.
Well, just think about the topsy-turviness.
You have to trust each other so much that not one of you is going to think it's funny to rock the boat.
And would
and then
be like,
is...
I'm going to hit myself with an oar and lean over the edge and probably pull everybody down.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been invited to begin with. So
you'd be like, I'm staying at camp, and when you get back, there may or may not be any hot dogs left in the cooler.
Yeah. We might also have no food tomorrow. Oops. I don't know what to tell you. So they all get in their canoe. They all head towards this cove, and again, it's like pretty dark out. Like that also scares me. You don't even know what you're.
It seems like a terrible idea. Like this
paddling towards,
like destined for a disaster.
Well, once inconveniently far enough from shore, that is when they all start sensing that they are being watched.
Uh-oh.
And Chuck looks behind them and he sees another glowing orb hovering in the sky. And the orb is pulsating, changing colors. Apparently it goes from red to green to white. And it looked like it was filled with fluid because it was kind of like shaking. Like it had
sloshing?
It had it was moving as if there was something like an energy inside of it.
Whoa, okay.
He noticed that the orb moved up and down, then left to right, which if you imagine, it's kind of like it was
like
oscillating.
Hovering, sort of. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And apparently his first response was to shout, "That's a hell of a case of swamp gas." And I don't know totally what he means. More 70s lingo. I
think what he means is like, because everyone says, oh, aliens are just, any UFO sightings are just swamp gas. So he's probably being like sarcastically like, well, if you're right, that's one hell of a swamp gas.
Well, he said that, which made everybody else turn around, and they went, "Oh shit! Look at this orb."
And they said, "Why would you say it that way? Why wouldn't you just say, guys, what the fuck is that?" But okay.
So Jim then is the next to comment on this, and he said that the orb was as big as a house. Which I feel like we buried the lead there. Nobody said that before now.
No, I don't care how groovy it is. Just tell me what it looks like.
Yeah, how big is it? How intimidating is this thing? Apparently, it's as big as a house. It made no sound, and it had, I guess, also another way to describe this oscillating movement. He said that it had a roiling effect, like a mini sun. So, like if you look, if you look at a sun, like it's kind of moving around.
I take it back. That's a really good description. Roiling.
That's a beautiful word.
That is. I feel
We're
like
testing
someone
everything.
took all their degrees are showing, like their liberal arts degrees, pottery, English, poetry.
Yeah. Apparently, this thing now starts moving closer to them, and he thought it glowed. Oh yeah, I said this thing already, but he said it glowed similar to something in a kiln, and he had said that about the first orb. So when he thought that about the second orb, he realized that they might be connected, and this is the same orb.
He's
from
only
2
now
nights ago.
realizing that. It's another flying
one is
thing, and
two,
it does
yeah.
remind me of the same class I took in college, so maybe they're connected. Yeah, they're flying.
Cone 10 strikes again. Yeah.
That does sound like a movie poster from like the 40s.
So, yeah, he was like, wait a minute, I think this thing has been following us the entire time. And interestingly, he did not see it changing color. He only saw it as white the whole time.
Oh.
Where some people saw it as changing
maybe
color.
he's colorblind. I mean, like a lot of men,
Oh,
there's
maybe.
like a high percentage. I feel like out of 4, odds are one of them might be. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Well,
I know that colorblindness doesn't necessarily work like that, but I don't know. I mean, could be. I was also going to ask, which you probably don't know, like I don't know if this was reported on, but like because the roiling orb made no noise, I was curious if that thing happened that people talk about, which scares me so much, of like all the crickets went quiet, the birds stopped. Do you know if that happened?
I don't think I didn't see anything about that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Such a creepy thing when people describe like, oh, suddenly the whole forest went like completely silent. I'm like, that's nothing good is happening.
Ooh. Chilling. And I wonder if maybe they didn't notice if things were getting quiet because they were paddling through water.
True. Like maybe they were making noise, yeah.
But yeah, the second that you're out in nature and you hear stillness, it's like, oh my God, like
so extra creepy.
And so not knowing what this thing was, I don't know if this was smart or stupid, but I think they were just confused and didn't know what to do, but they saw this big glowing thing and they were like, let's try to get its attention with the flashlight and see if it moves, which as someone not involved in this, I'm like, why the fuck would you do that?
Exactly.
But also in the situation, I would be so curious.
Exactly.
I'd be like, oh, what?
And somebody would say it and I'd go, I mean, I guess I don't have a better idea. Like,
yeah,
what else are we going to do? I don't know.
Besides like duck and cover.
Yeah, in the canoe.
And so they use their flashlights. Oh yeah, also because they're in the canoe. Imagine how isolating that is.
I mean, to be in the middle of the water,
can't even get away.
Stranded. Yeah, that you can't go much faster unless you like start oaring. That's not right. Rowing faster. Yeah, this all sounds bad. I feel like there's no correct move, so I'll give them a pass on this one.
Yeah, me too. They so they took their flashlights and they blinked SOS to it.
Well, that's not good. I guess that's probably all they know. I mean, that's all I know about Morse code. But why would you say SOS? Because then you're basically giving the international sign of like, take us, help us.
Yeah. Or I wonder if they were doing it. I don't know. Maybe they thought it was like
that ship was SOS.
Yeah, like, do you need help?
Right.
But then, like, what are you going to do? This thing's glowing in the sky and is as big as a house. How are you going to be helpful?
Knowing myself, that's all I would know of Morse code. I'd be like, I can say SOS, and that's it. So maybe, maybe somebody was like, I don't know any Morse code.
Which, like, the aliens were probably like, look at them doing their fun little trick with their lights. We're going to come get them.
Batteries. They think they're, like, so smart.
4 in 1 canoe. Oh, how
so
tight and
sad.
cozy.
Oh, look, they brought Chuck to carry all their dry goods. Wow.
So the orb responded by coming closer to them. Like, I mean, if you're gonna flash a light at it,
What do you
and you want its
expect?
attention.
Yeah.
So it got closer to them. It headed toward the canoe, and it descended from the sky until it was only like a few feet from the water. Like they said, like 40 feet from the water. And Jack even is quoted saying, "I remember looking over my shoulder, trying to keep an eye on this object, and it was coming up behind us. It was getting very close. It was almost on top of us at this point, and I remember thinking, we're not going to outrun this thing."
Ah!
Jim, Jack, and Charlie start panicking and paddling to the camp, but since seeing the orb, Chuck is in a trance and is unresponsive.
Uh-oh.
And he's just staring at it, which is crazy because in hindsight, it's like you wonder what someone looks like before they get beamed up, or like what if psychologically he was already beamed up and you're watching someone mid abduction.
You just freaked me out. Ew, yeah, like he's like no long, his consciousness gone. Time to bring the husk.
Behind.
Yeah.
Because like you do wonder, like in those moments where someone's abducted and they've blacked out, and you wonder like where are they? Like are they physically gone, or are they like frozen in time? And
that is so
he's
freaky.
just staring as if
that's so freaky.
as if he's already
it's like
checked
he left
out.
before his body left. Yeah.
Yeah. Or what if only your mind ever leaves and you just freeze for hours? Like,
Ew!
what happens?
Look at my arm. You're freaking me out here with this talk.
Well, so Chuck is now in a trance. The other three, I can't imagine how pissed I'd be if I were one of the other three being like, "Fucking paddle! Like, what
Chuck,
is
we
wrong
only
with you?"
brought you for your fucking biceps, and now you just crap out on us.
Even worse, Chuck is the one who invited them. Charlie's the one
Oh,
So-
got it. I see. I call both Charlies Chuck in my head, so I just assume we know which Chuck I'm talking about telepathically.
Well,
but yes,
this-
I meant Braun.
Imagine
But
being like, wait, Ron?
Sorry, no, the Braun Chuck, the
Oh,
other Chuck,
the
and then we got
Braun.
Charlie, who's invited everybody, and he's the one who's hypnotized.
Yeah, the one who invited
or
everybody.
tranced.
The one who
Okay,
invited
got it.
everybody, and the one who was who showed up to carry the canoe.
Carry the
he's
canoe.
he's fucking carrying the team right now. He's
I
like,
see. His traps are working hard. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
I would be so mad though if this guy was not helping, and I'd be like, "You fucking brought all of us out here, and now you're not even gonna help us get away
Now
from
you're
this."
just gonna fucking sit there and let us save your ass. Yeah.
And I wonder if any of them, because I know you and me, if we were ever put in this situation and one of us just fucking froze when we saw a ball of light in the sky, I'd be like, "This bitch is abducted. We got to get out of here." Like
Bye. Yeah. I'd be like, they're a goner.
but
Sorry.
but I wonder what they're thinking. Like I don't
Yeah,
even
they're
know.
probably just pissed. Like, why is he ignoring us?
Yeah.
Like, snap out of it, you know?
So Jim, Jack, and Charlie are panic paddling, trying to get back to shore. And then all of a sudden they see the orb release a beam of light that points at the water. And basically when the guys are about to get to shore, Jim, Jack, and Charlie start trying to, they're scrambling. But Chuck sits there fixated on the orb. He actually even remembers later in hindsight, he remembers being mad at his friends for making them try to get away from the orb. Like he remembers being attached to it.
Ew.
The rest of the friends recall just about to get to shore, like almost at the end of the finish line, blacking out.
Oh my God. So this fucking mean alien made them do all that physical labor to get that close to shore and then went, just kidding. That's really fucked up.
And then all of a sudden they feel like they lost a moment, and then they were finishing their ride back to shore. And then they remember seeing the orb float up higher and higher and higher. And then the beam of light that was pointing down at them originally somehow rotates to point to the sky. And then it flashes away. Like the light's so bright that it cuts through the clouds. And then according to one of them, the sphere began eclipsing on itself, turning into a half circle and then a crescent until it vanished and totally winked out.
What the fuck?
And then they saw it reappear again just for a minute, but much higher up, as if it had teleported hundreds of feet in the air. And then they watched it fly away super fast.
That's crazy. So it basically shields itself from view to teleport almost.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, this is freaking me out. So wow, okay. Ooh.
Jim says, I remember thinking I could pick up a stone and bounce it off this thing's side. That's how close it was. And then all of a sudden it just streaked away very, very fast. And within seconds, it was just a star, another light in the sky.
That is creepy, dude.
Which now makes me think, if I'm looking at a star up in the sky, is that a UFO who like just parked after abducting
Are you not
somebody?
always thinking that? Because I am always thinking that when I look at a star. I'm like, what if that's a UFO?
Also, like, so they are able to essentially just vanish. Do they have to like be vulnerable and expose themselves to do the beam of light thing? Or can they not just be 40 feet away from you at any given time and you wouldn't know?
Yeah. Oh, that's a terrible thought. That's a terrible
they're
thought.
closer
Like,
than the stars.
They're closer
They're
than
just
the
sitting.
stars.
One's right behind you.
Ah! And they're like cloaking themselves, but then they choose to reveal themselves. Yeah, you're right. Maybe there's some weird like law, like physical law that they can't. Maybe it's only in our orbit. You know, maybe things don't work the same in other. I have no idea.
Interesting. Well, all the guys, once they do get to shore, all 4 of them feel like they're in some altered state, like their head space is just weird. And when they get to the campsite, even though they feel like they've only been gone for maybe 20 minutes, the several massive logs on the fire have burnt completely down.
They're giant fire.
It said it was almost as if the entire fire had been consumed hours ago.
Oh no.
And Jack said he felt really sick for the rest of the night, and he said he felt like something was trying to lift him off the ground, like he felt like a vertigo.
Oof. Oh, that makes you think like they had a difference in gravity, or like they're
readjusting to this
like
gravity.
altitude sickness or something. Yeah.
Ooh. All of them were weirdly calm after what happened. And Chuck said, I remember stepping out of the canoe and going up to the campsite. This is after Chuck is the one who's been like in a trance.
Yeah.
Then when he wakes up, I remember stepping out of the canoe and going up to the campsite. And I remember there was no panic. People seemed to be very relaxed. The unusual thing is that we didn't stay up for hours and discuss this thing, which is what you'd think 4 young guys on a camping trip would do. We just seemed very fatigued and wanted to go to bed. The next morning, we got up and got our camp together and just paddled to the next campsite. So it didn't even
Just
cross our minds to address
went about
it.
their business. And that's what I've talked with you about this, like in other circumstances, but when they talk about paranormal apathy, at least on Astonishing Legends, they talk about it all the time, where the idea that like something will happen and you'll be like, well, anyway, back to bed. And then the next day you're like, wait, what the fuck? Like that demon should have like shaken me out of my stupor. But you kind of just go into like, oh, well, shrug it off.
Yeah. It's, they really just...
I wonder what what the aliens are doing to make you feel so apathetic. Like, I don't know.
For all we know, it's them just like straight up saying like if because a lot of them speak telepathically, right? So maybe they just like say something that like sticks with you.
Better not talk about that.
I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how much of it is like the aliens doing something and how much of it is like your brain's like need for survival. Totally. And like you just your own brain disassociates.
That's a good point. And it's like that kind of shock that people go into sometimes where they just like, I've told stories on this podcast of people who get stabbed repeatedly, wake up and like make coffee before even realizing like they've had a traumatic head injury or, so I guess, yeah, you're right. It could just be like a survival mechanism, like,
or it could be space magic. We don't know.
Or it could be space magic.
By the time they all got to their next campsite the next day, all of their memories of the event were completely fuzzy, as if they were erasing themselves.
Oh, gosh, it's like a dream where it kind of fades.
Yeah. Did you know in the first minute of being awake, you've forgotten 90% of your dream?
I do. That's why I write them down. It really helps with.
But how do you do that within a minute of waking up?
I have a journal literally right here that says dreams.
Because
I have to, or I grab my phone and I do like a voice note sometimes.
Gotcha.
I would try it. It really works. Like,
I
was telling Eva.
I wrote one in my notepad recently, but that was the only one I've ever written down just because I remembered, like, let's see how much I can remember.
Yeah. It's really interesting how even before you go to sleep, if you set an intention, like, I'm going to have a dream tonight, you will remember it because you've already like consciously made a point to remember it. So I do that, and then writing it down. Within like a week of writing down your dreams, I swear to God, you wake up and you're like, wow, I have like a whole novel in my head.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really freaky.
That's wild. I have a lot of deja vu in my dreams where I know that I'm going
Ew.
to. I'm like, which makes me think like either there's certain worlds that I just tap into best when I'm sleeping, or even if I think I've forgotten a dream, it is actually still very alive in the back of my head.
And you're like reliving it almost in
like
your dreams
I
again.
go to the same sets
I do
all the
too.
time in my dreams.
Oh my gosh. And sometimes during my day, I'll like think about that set.
Yeah, I'm like, I want to go to there. Like that's a nice place.
I'm like, oh, the high school hallway with the green lockers. Like, I don't know.
Well,
I know
now
it
I'm gonna,
so well.
Now I'm totally gonna end
now
up
we're
there.
gonna meet there. I'll leave you a note in locker
Okay.
22.
Okay, got it. I'll go tell you what the note says. Although I feel like
You'll
it probably looks like
You'll probably wake up and be like, I remember, and then fall back asleep and go, oh shit.
yeah,
I
exactly.
immediately forgot. I forgot to write it down. Sorry,
Or I feel
Christine.
like the handwriting, because maybe I can't read in my dreams or something, and it'll look like AI written words.
Oh my God,
or-
like the kind of gobbledygook, like just scribbles, or it'll like not make any sense. Maybe I'll put, how about this? I'll put a stuffed animal in your locker and you can find that instead of like writing so that it's not.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay.
That's helpful. That's helpful.
I'll think of some options so that in case this ever actually happens, I won't stand there and go, which stuffed animal, and then forget.
Right.
You know,
right. Thank you.
I gotta be ready.
I appreciate that.
Anyway,
Anyway.
what were we talking about?
I don't know.
Right, they forgot all their memories of the UFO.
Oh, yes,
They
yes.
faded away.
They're all fading away, and by the time they got home 10 days later, they had pretty much forgotten the event totally, and it didn't come back for years.
And I mean,
Like-
it must have. I mean, I don't know, but you're probably right that it has a lot to do with trauma response. Like, if you're just so traumatized that you block it out until years later when you start processing it, like that would match
On top of space magic,
real life trauma.
You're
On
doomed.
top of space magic, right? Like, what are you gonna do? Totally.
So years later, they finally have these memories come back. And this is in the 80s. Jack starts having nightmares where his back is pressed against a wall, but it doesn't feel like a wall. It feels like an upright table. And on this table, he could not move or speak. He could only feel and think. And he knew his friends were sitting next to him, also in a trance.
This is like, I mean, hell. He's like having sleep paralysis in an
his
actual
dream.
UFO.
Yeah.
This is so fucked up. Yeah, in his dream, right.
And
Oh
the
my
worst
God.
part is, like, he said, like, he's saying he could sense his friends next to him, but they were in a altered state where they didn't know to help him.
Oh, ew. So he was like aware, but they were still in a trance? No.
Which, like, I wonder if, like, you know, quote unquote, the anesthesia was wearing off, or like if he had to be kind of coherent during the procedures or something. Because, like, why would they let you even
have that
remember
memory?
that at all?
Yeah, maybe they gave you something and it slipped, like you said, like the anesthesia wore off or whatever. Ooh, that's horrible.
Jack said, I had no idea where I was or why I was there. To my left, I could see my brother, Chuck, and Charlie sitting on some type of bench, and they were all naked. I was wondering why they weren't helping me because I felt like I was in danger. And while I'm trying to figure this out, I noticed this figure, or a dark, shadowy type figure, emerging from the light, this bright light in front of me. So he starts calling them the entities, and then he starts calling them the things. And two of these things was he had this bright light in front of him, but then when they showed up, they blocked out the light, and he remembers these two entities coming up to him, looking at him, lifting up his arm, observing his armpit, which, yikes. I like imagine already. At first
I feel your pain. I feel your pain
like,
because I know how much you hate that.
Well, I can't imagine anything more like vulnerable than being on a fucking spaceship and like trapped on a fucking bed with aliens, but then to expose your naked fucking armpit to them. That's the test. That's the final
fresh
test.
Hell. That's a fresh fucking hell, dude.
That's the final test.
I know you don't you in particular hate like the idea of your under. Is that you who hates that?
I mean, most people I think have a thing with armpits. I really hate having them open.
That's what I thought.
I hate having my threck open.
Yeah, your threat. Me too. I don't like having that
Like
open.
sleeping,
but I think that's just I watch too much Criminal Minds.
Me too. Sleeping on a plane like this, I can't sleep like that. Like
no,
I always
no,
sleep
Don't
hunched
expose
over forward
your throat.
because I feel like someone's just gonna come over and just
slit it. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's probably from our media
consumption.
How much consumption? Thank you.
Same thing where if I'm on the couch and I'm like stretched out like this with my hands like over the couch, I feel like someone's gonna do that to my wrists.
Your wrists. That's what it is.
That's all of it.
Okay, maybe that. And it's all of it. Okay, I get it.
Anything that in a natural position is covered is something like I've got my
when you're just
my little armpits. I got the bottoms of my feet.
It's like your soft underbelly.
Yes.
You know, like don't show your vulnerable parts.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, I can't. I feel like I could have almost like been on a UFO. Trapped on the bed. I could have probably played it cool up until then, but the second they then pulled my arm up, oh my god!
No!
I'm screaming like a fucking like oh my god! Because what are they gonna do? Like on Earth, the worst thing is they tickle me. In space, they could they're probing, they're inserting,
magic? Think of the space magic that could happen to that armpit.
Oh my god! I can't even.
I'm sorry.
I can't.
I'm really heavy, like a conniption right now.
Oh my god, his poor armpit.
This is like how I feel about spines, by the way. So there better not be any of that nonsense
because
I will have to. Thank God. Okay.
So he thinks they're going to implant something in his armpit. By the way, they're looking at it, which I don't blame him.
No.
But honestly, fortunately for him, I would say he wakes up too early from the dream every time to know what happens from there.
Okay, but can I make like a side note? You know, for the first time this episode, can I make a comment? Thank you for the permission. When you said implant it in his armpit, I swear to God, it's relevant. So for a brief period of time, I was on Nexplanon, I think it was called, which is a birth control implant. Oh,
yeah. That was when we first became friends.
Yes, and I reacted very badly to it, and I still feel terrible because I recommended it to multiple friends before I had all the side effects, and then they were like, I feel miserable, and I was like, yeah, maybe get that out because I had to. But beyond that, so what they did, they implanted it like basically in your fucking armpit, Em. And the reason I didn't mean to upset you, but I'm sorry, I wasn't saying that to upset you. I was just saying it to say that seems to be where these kinds of things are implanted, so maybe the aliens were like, yeah.
I mean, clearly we've done it. Others can.
Yeah. It's kind of like, oh, that's odd, because that usually would be where the implant goes.
Ah, man. If there were a river, I would just simply jump into it.
You would tip the canoe. Goodbye, cruel world. I'm leaving my husk behind.
Now, because of this story, if I ever get abducted in the woods, I am absolutely tanking my own boat. So I don't, just for my armpit's sake.
You're like, I give up. I'm out.
So anyway, they mess with his armpit for a second. He does not have the same panic attack that I did, but that's a nightmare that he has, that he's strapped to this thing. His friends are there. They're messing with his armpit. Now it's going to be a dream I have.
I was going to say, now we're all going to think it's our reality too.
And after each nightmare, he would feel really, really sick, like he did the night of the orb. Remember, afterwards, everyone felt off, but he felt really particularly sick.
Oh, ew.
So he would have these nightmares, and he would feel that same thing all over again, and it would last for days. And then it turned out that his twin was also having the same nightmares. So, looking for answers, he goes to a conference where he knows that there's going to be like UFO experts there. He meets Raymond Fowler, who is a big ufologist, and Jack starts writing his experiences down. After asking Raymond for help, he's like, "Please, I just need someone to help me." I guess Raymond said, "Okay, start writing your stuff down." And all of a sudden, more emerges.
That's
more
why the same as the dreams.
Back.
Like writing it down, it like triggers your mind to keep thinking about it.
I do wonder if aliens, when you're abducted, they operate on this, not like physically surgeon-wise operate, but I wonder if they whatever they do to you is in the same part of your brain that messes with dreams, where
With
it's
a dream, yeah.
it's like it's going to be really fuzzy immediately. Within a couple days, you're not going to remember anything.
It makes me wonder, like when you're put under for twilight sleep, where you're like sort of conscious and like you can hazy in and out. Like maybe that's what they do to you, like twilight sleep. So you're like, so it's kind of somewhere in your consciousness. But then it makes you wonder though, why don't they just take you totally out? Like
right, like knock my ass out.
Why do the memories resurface? Like why are they not good at
why
really deleting memories?
Or why can't they just like they can fuck with your subconscious, but they can't like just make you sleepy? Like
erase it? Yeah, it's so weird.
If an alien wanted to abduct me, they could literally just make me want to take a nap, and then I would definitely not remember any of it. And like,
yeah, you don't remember it anyway.
You could do whatever you wanted with my armpits. I wouldn't know.
Oh, don't make that proclamation on air. No, what if some people, and they just don't know this, but like, what if some people are like more immune to whatever space magic they have, and like for example his 3 friends who were totally out, like maybe some people are like completely put under, but then some people like break through the anesthesia. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's more people who do like dream work like you do, and
maybe they're unfortunately, well, I'm gonna stop now because I don't think I would want to remember any of this, but yeah, good point.
Well, so, okay, this is how he describes the beings that were in his nightmares. He wrote, because he's writing them down now because more things are showing up in his dreams. Yes. In these dreams, he's now seeing them better and remembering them, and he writes, they have large heads on a thin neck and 2 large metallic-looking eyes. By that, I mean they are colored like those kinds of phosphorescent beetles that seem to change colors as they move. My impression is that they are insect-like, but they have no antennas or anything, and they don't have carnivorous-looking parts. Their hands are at the ends of their arms, but they are not like our hands. They are more elongated with only 4 fingers. There were no eyelids.
This is horrible. This is horrible. I can't cope with it.
I like you went, oh, yeah, and that's important too, no eyelids. Like, everything else... Like,
oh, did I mention the no eyelids? Because there were no eyelids.
Like, speaking of another thing that I like fucking creeps me out are eyelids. Like,
yeah, I know
that's on the same par as armpits.
I get that. I can totally get that.
So Jack begins referring to these entities as the things, and Raymond, after like hearing what he's been going through and what he's seeing, totally believes that the 4 men went through something and offered to do he offered hypnosis sessions, basically.
Aha!
Where he could uncover repressed memories of the event. And they all said yes, but they made Jim go first, which I like. They're like, you go first. And within 2 sessions, Jim was remembering things.
And he's the one who's been writing it down, right?
Him or his twin, but they're having the same nightmares. So
got it. Okay.
And the events happened presumably while they were out at shore, this abduction, right? So right before getting back to land, when they blacked out, they assume that's when this happened. And he said the event began when they all looked up at the beam of light as it was pointing down directly up on them. They looked up into it and realized that the beam of light actually wasn't just a beam of light, but the light was covering up a tube to a room that they were all pulled up towards. Which I love that it's actually like movie magic where it has to look pretty from far away, but when you get up close, it's like a bunch of rubber tubing and shit. It's like just like so janky.
They're like, we're just gonna vacuum suction you up here, but from afar it looks beautiful.
It's like the beam of light makes this real classy, but actually this is like my dad's broken down RV, and I need you to come up here real quick.
Oh my god, it's a rusty ladder.
Yeah. So they get sucked up through this tube. And he remembered seeing his brother Jack standing against the wall, just like in Jack's nightmares.
Okay.
So now he's seeing the
that's
other
horrible.
perspective.
So from the other perspective, that's no good.
The entities were using telepathy, of course, to communicate with them. And the things told them to remove their clothes, and then the guys' bodies were evaluated. And the guys were then separated into individual rooms. It doesn't really feel like individual rooms because I saw a sketch that they had done when they were recounting their experience, and it felt like they were all in one room but taking turns on the table.
Taking turns on the table. No.
Because remember, now this is 2 perspectives of it, but they're all sitting on a bench when
There
they're
were
not
3
being
of them.
examined.
Exactly, yeah.
And they're
So
just
they
like,
might have been in the same space.
and they're just hypnotized to like not move until it's their turn to get on the table.
Right.
Ooh.
Okay. Oh,
Um,
God.
And so they were all forced to give samples of things. I think probably they all got the exact same samples taken out of them, but Jim specifically remembers being forced to give a sperm sample.
Oh.
Jim was then sent back to the bench where Charlie and Chuck were sitting, and then Jack came back as well.
Oh, my God.
Jim felt that the things were more interested, because this is what I'm noticing too, is that Jack and Jim, they're the ones that are having these recurring nightmares. They're the ones who remember being evaluated, and their friends are just kind of sitting behind. But I feel like because they also felt sick after the experience and their friends didn't, I'm wondering if more things happened to them, or if they were something more vulnerable happened to them. And I thought this while doing the notes, but then I saw, through the notes that Jim actually also said the same thing, that maybe the entities were more interested in them because they were identical twins.
Literally from the moment you started this and said there were twins, I was like, oh my God, the aliens are studying the twins just like we are.
Yeah. Well, they're like, there's 2 of them.
I mean, that must be fascinating.
It must be. If you'd never seen a twin, like 2 identical twins before, I know it's wrong to stare, but if that was the first time you've ever seen something,
You'd
you'd
be
go,
so
hang
perplexed.
on. Yeah, I'd be like, that's just
It's incredible.
nature
it's
is
remarkable.
insane. So yeah, anyway, I also thought the same thing of maybe because they're twins, they got more attention, and that's
Totally.
why they have more memories coming back faster.
And more side effects and yeah, ugh.
During the sessions, remember, by the way, Charlie just came to carry canoes. He wasn't even on the first invite
Poor
roster.
Charlie.
This poor guy. So during the sessions, Jim would get so panicked in his hypnosis that Raymond actually wondered whether it was ethical to continue the regression.
Ooh.
But the hypnotherapist, which just like how we were saying, or even you were saying with Leona, like you just kind of distract them to,
Yeah.
the hypnotherapist in the room would say, oh no, like even if it's not ethical, let's rewrite the way that they're seeing things so he'll stop panicking. So now instead of him
Okay.
experiencing these things, we're just having him explain to us what he's seeing on TV. And like he's just
Right, reframe it so
Yeah.
it's less scary. Okay.
you're not feeling these things, you're just watching a movie. What's happening in the movie?
Just gaslight him.
Just totally gaslight him. That's like all the things concerned here. He's all things considered. Sorry, he's that's not the worst thing that happened to him today. Is getting gaslit.
Very good point. Okay, and at least it makes him feel better. You're so right.
After Jim did his sessions, Jack agreed to do a regression too, and he was able to confirm all the things Jim recalled. He said that the things repeatedly told them, "Do not be afraid. We won't harm you." Okay, you're strapped to a table taking samples and looking at my armpit. Nice
fucking try. Yeah, my armpit alone is too far.
Like the concept of you even knowing or wanting to know about my armpit is harm. So leave me alone.
It's harming me already.
Jack told them during his regressions that they also used telepathy on him. And then he said, when they said, "Don't be afraid, we won't harm you," he told them back using telepathy, "I am afraid. Like, stop this."
Nice try. That part. And why can't they make that go away? You know what I mean? Or do they not want to? Like, it's so creepy to me. Like, they can control some things and some things seemingly they have no control over. So.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I don't know enough about Earthbound science, let alone their science, but I do think it's interesting that it's a genius superpower to, like, if you need to communicate with us, but we can't hurt you or anything, or we can't disrupt you, they can just, like, it's almost like turning the radio volume up and down. Like, if they want to talk to us, they can, and otherwise they don't have to pay attention to us.
It's kind of crazy.
He said he was afraid regardless of what they were trying to do. He wanted to put his clothes on and he wanted to leave. And Jack remembers having a sample taken from him as well, and then other fluids other than sperm via catheter and enema.
Oh my God, what the F?
When the procedure was done, he was sat back down on the bench next to the other guys, and from there, the things brought them back to the area where the other end of the tube was that looks like a light from far away. And I don't know if they got pushed or escorted or whatever, but they are now sliding down the tube to get back to their boat. And the experience of being in the beam of light, he said, felt like being ripped apart in all directions.
Oh, no, it wasn't even a fun ride? That's
I know.
terrible.
You'd hope it'd be like the best slide of your life. Like just
Yeah, I would think so. Right
just
into
to
a
make
water.
up for it.
Water
No, being ripped apart, that makes me think like that they really do completely alter your chemistry or something up there for you to
Yeah.
be to accommodate like whatever they've got going on gravity wise or altitude wise or science wise.
Ugh.
And then they have
And
to
they just toss you back in.
like recalibrate you for Earth or something.
Ugh.
A moment later, he remembers being back in the canoe with his friends and paddling toward shore.
Fucking hell. It makes me wonder if you're right about maybe they're just frozen and that's why they let them go all the way to shore so that their bodies, they would be like already at shore and maybe they froze.
Oh, maybe.
And then their like consciousness went up in there and they got back. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just, it makes,
It's like, well,
was the boat empty or were they all
be
frozen, you know?
Well, so Charlie's session was next, and he recalled floating above the canoe, looking down at the water, and then blacking out and being naked in the room. He was also lying on the table, and the thing told him to not be afraid. Then they took skin, blood, and saliva samples from him.
God.
And Charlie said, "It's cold like a doctor's office is cold. We shouldn't be here. I just kept thinking, I want to be back in the canoe."
Oh.
And when it was over, to answer your question, he remembers one of the things physically helping them step back into the canoe, which was moored by the beam of light. So the boat had stayed put in the water the entire time.
Oh, so they basically did that thing and like froze the boat and then pulled them out of it. Oh, ew.
Yeah. And then by the time...
And you know what's crazy is that they probably can fucking cloak that by putting that stupid beam of light and like cloaking that from the outside so that they're just in this tube and no one can see.
And no one can see the boat, yeah.
Ugh.
But yeah, so the boat had just been essentially docked mid-water by them. And then... I wonder if they were like, oh, well, we know they're going to be tired after all the exams, so let's let them get to shore first.
Right, we'll let them get closer
to
their campsite.
If you're already going to do this, can you not just like teleport them right back onto land?
Into their
can
beds,
you please not?
You know? Well, but you hear stories like, I forget the guy's name. I've talked about it before. But like Terry Lovelace, like one of the scariest abduction stories ever. And like he would describe, and some other people have described, like they get back to their campsite or what have you, and like their shoes are on the wrong feet. Or like they'll wake up and be like, why is my shirt on backwards? Or like my clothes are inside out. It's almost like somebody haphazardly like tossed your stuff back on or like hoisted you into the canoe and said, okay, bye. You know, like just half-assed it. So that does make sense, I guess, that your whole body would go. Ugh.
Yeah, no, thank you. Well, even then, to answer an even earlier question of like, I wonder what's going on mentally for them or what these things are doing to their brains. In Charlie's session, he remembers the things telling them telepathically to forget the experience, and pretty immediately he did. So they must also have some sort of...
You're right.
They must have some sort of power to just be like...
Persuasion.
It's so weird to use hypnosis to remember a time you were hypnotized. You know?
To not remember. Like you were hypnotized to not remember something. Now
like
let's hypnotize you to remember.
Canceling it out.
It cancels out. Also, I'm realizing I sound probably pretty stupid because I'm like, oh, well, maybe their bodies are frozen. But then I'm like, wait, they were getting like samples from them. So I guess their bodies had to be up there. But anyway.
It had to be an empty boat at some point, yeah.
Ugh.
So that's their three. Then in Chuck's session, he also remembers being naked in a bright room. He said it looked like a veterinary office. He also had samples taken. And he also recalls watching Charlie's exam. So he was the only one who could remember sitting on the bench and watching one of his friends have a procedure done.
That is weird.
And he regressed back to him being in a trance on the bench. And he said, I see some sort of device on him. They've got a thing that looks like a silvery, it looks like it's got curves on it. It's almost like it sucks something. He's got his head tipped all the way back. It's almost like he's in pain. We can't help him. All I can do is watch.
Jesus Christ, no wonder this is so traumatizing.
Yeah. He also remembers going through... I assume this is the beam of light, the tube. he remembers going through a portal with a membrane at the door before the things placed him back in the canoe. So, so that was all of their sessions that they had and what they could remember. And while Raymond is doing all of these, all this research on them, he didn't do the actual hypnotizing, but he knew a guy. So that between the two of them, they're making this case. Right. He starts asking them also about like their childhoods, and breaking news. Chuck remembers in one of these regression sessions that he had actually seen the things before in his childhood bedroom.
Fuck.
Also breaking news, during their sessions, the twins remembered, oh yeah, we used to have a poltergeist in our childhood home.
Oh my God.
And then Raymond was like, okay, I'm going to ask your parents about this because like why didn't you remember a fucking poltergeist, or why did you not mention it until now? Yeah. And Raymond goes and talks to the twins' mother. The twins are like, I think in their 20s or 30s now. And he's going to their mom and he's like, do you remember a poltergeist? And her name's Jean. And she was like, oh my God, yeah, Harry.
Shut the fuck up. Okay, so first of all, we've got Jean, Jack, and what's his name?
And
Jim. Jean, Jack, Jim. Just
I like to think the dad's name is John.
It better
obviously.
be. I'll be really disappointed if it's like Kurt.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Harry, the fucking poltergeist. Okay, forget it.
Jean says that Harry was a humanoid figure that the whole family saw at different points. What? He was totally white with flowing robes and a beard.
What in the world?
Fun fact, according to Raymond and all of his UFO research, other abductees reported having childhood figures show up in their home, accompanying aliens wearing robed clothes.
Well, there was
wearing flowing robes.
One, I think it was Terry Lovelace actually, said that when they would visit as a child, they would dress up as like clowns and they would have like circus monkeys. Ugh. And he was like, it was honestly scarier, but it was almost as though they were trying to make me feel at ease. But it's like, they don't get that clowns walking into your room in the middle of the night does not make you feel easy.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, that's really, really creepy.
Yeah. So, no thanks. No. But apparently they think Harry was like a co-conspirator in the alien situation.
Yeah.
Jack added that as a kid, he used to be woken up by a horrible monster who had the power to paralyze him in bed. And him and his brother would hear music at night next to their bed. They'd wake up to knocking on their door when no one was there and voices calling their names. Jack also felt something pulling covers off of him at night and trying to yank him out of bed. He also alleged seeing a ball of light moving through his house when he was home alone one day. And all of these experiences with Harry kept happening until they were 15, and then no activity. They always thought it was a ghost, but Raymond thinks it was connected to the things watching them since childhood.
I mean, the fact that everyone saw it, and
I was going to say, this suggests that hauntings that the whole family knows about could actually be aliens doing early prep on your kid to abduct them later.
You just traumatized so many people. Anybody whose kid has had a weird experience are like, oh no.
Oh no. And like, but I mean, not that this was like the aliens like direct intention, but it's almost genius because then you can get away with doing essentially lab research on a future abductee, and if you just put it under the guise of a ghost, you can do it in front of the whole family and no one will know what's going on.
I mean, what the fuck? Yeah, and it's always explained away as like, oh, an imaginary friend, or like, oh, it's just the kids are imagining things or having weird dreams. Like, we can brush that off. And meanwhile, a clown is in the closet, like, hee hee.
Well, so Jim later recovers another memory of actually being abducted by a bright orb when he was out sledding as a kid.
What?
So it was actually not his first abduction.
Oh my God.
Who is doing the hypnosis, the regression?
I want to do one.
This man is so powerful.
Yeah,
like,
I feel
this
like
guy
I'm gonna be
knows
like, I was abducted
way too much.
too 18 times. I don't know.
Yeah, help me. Chuck remembered also, because remember, he saw things when he was a
Yeah.
kid. He remembered seeing strange creatures in his room when he was 4 or 5, which made him go sleep in his parents' room because he was too freaked out. And then the same creatures came back another time when he was in bed, and he was so scared that he remembers just trying to fall asleep to them, observing him, and then leaving.
Ah, poor thing.
Jack then, and by the way, again, Charlie was just there to bring the fucking canoes. Like Chuck and the twins, they've all had these experiences since childhood. Now they're all getting abducted together, which makes me think, like, do you think the aliens were like, oh my God, patient 1 and 2 and patient 3 somehow all know each other. We need to abduct all of them together and see.
And so what I said was right. They saw Chuck and went, motherfucker, who invited that guy? Or Charlie. And they were like, who invited that guy? This is not, he's not
Like,
supposed to be here.
Charlie collateral damage, the canoe man, I suppose.
But wait. Also, what if they somehow orchestrated that they would all 3 be on this camping trip? You know what I mean? Like, maybe it's not by chance. Maybe that they're friends. Maybe it's like, oh, they put these people in touch. I don't know. Ugh.
This is where you get like the aliens are actually the gods pulling all the strings and like
playing The Sims with us.
Yeah, and it's like, oh well, this guy and this guy and this guy, we've been working with all of them for years. Let's
toss them in the same pottery class.
It's like when you find 2 puppy dogs and you make them kiss. You press their faces into each other. It's like now you've got these 3 people and you're like, oh, let's all smush them together on the same trip and put them in the same boat and isolate them out in the water. Yeah. And then there's Charlie, but I guess we'll take the spare.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We'll find something
poor
to
Charlie.
do with him. We'll give him to the interns. Practice. Yeah, that's horrible. Sorry, God.
That poor guy. So anyway, it could have been fully
orchestrated,
divinely orchestrated in some way. But yeah, Jim, Jack, and Chuck all had really creepy experiences when they were kids. One of the twins was abducted. And Jack then later remembered that after the whole event that happened out in the water, that the things came back and abducted him again.
What?
Apparently he woke up in the middle of the night one time to let the dogs out and saw a light go through his window. And then he saw the things appear in his room. They woke up his wife who was in bed with him, who like she probably being married to someone who's been abducted. I feel like you're like, I could be next.
Oh, I'd be like
by proxy.
Sleep in a different room or house or country, please.
I feel like Mary maybe had that thought, and unfortunately, it was a valid fear because apparently the things wanted Jack, and I guess because Mary was there, they went, "Come along, Mary," just like they did to Charlie.
Hell no.
And in a trance, they both walked out of the field and followed the light.
Ugh.
And Jack remembers being told, "Go home and go to bed." And if he tried talking about this event, it would hurt.
You've had stories like that before too. Not you, but you've told stories like of being really painful or uncomfortable to talk about.
Which, it's and also so mysterious as to would it physically hurt? Will karma come back? Will you hear about it and do something to me? But also for them to go, don't be afraid. We're not going to hurt you. But if you ever talk about this again, it's going to fucking hurt.
And you're going to be traumatized for the rest of your life. But that doesn't count.
Yeah. And but so when he discovered this in his regression, so like, holy shit, they've been back and they've hurt me and my wife. His wife heard about that and went, can I actually get in on that next hypnosis session, please?
Turn.
I want to see what's going on there. And since she was involved in the abduction case, Mary did a session. The guy who was doing the hypnosis suggested that she bring a friend in case she was uncomfortable in a room with men performing hypnosis on her, which seems nice, but also I think it was maybe more for him to make sure there was a witness in the room that he wasn't doing anything fishy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Like for his own business, I think he didn't want to be accused of anything, but it was also written like he really did worry about her.
Well, and also it's like, why would you even need to insist that? That seems weird, but okay, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about it.
I would just say
like,
bring a
that's
friend
nice.
in case it's emotionally difficult or something. Like you don't have to say in case, I don't know.
In case you're worried about me doing something to you.
I am now.
Yeah, it's like a guy when he's like, I'm not dangerous, don't worry. And I'm like, girl, now I'm fucking scared.
Now I pick the bear now. Please get away.
So maybe he was a great guy. I don't know, but it felt weird, felt off. But Anyway, so she brought along Chuck's wife, and ultimately she was not that she was too uncomfortable in the session, but she couldn't, like, something was preventing her from talking about the event, as if something told her, don't talk about this or you'll be hurt. And so she couldn't actually go through with the session. And because of that, the guy who was doing the hypnosis, his name's Tony, by the way, he decided that he was going to do a different tactic and use a pendulum, which is usually obviously used to communicate with spirits. But if she held it in her hands and maybe just kind of like let herself sink into her subconscious, then maybe she would make tiny movements with her hand that she didn't realize she was in control of or something, and they would give the answers that she needed. So I don't know how accurate of a test that is. I don't know if that's reliable enough, but she ended up getting some answers. Again, like, they can be taken with a grain of salt, but this whole story can too, so whatever. She asked, had she experienced something that night that she was told to forget? And then the pendulum said yes. She asked, could she remember these if she wanted to, the events? It said yes. Okay. And then she asked, would the events scare her? And she got yes.
Oh, no.
By the end of the session, she had determined she was abducted with Jack and had endured several exams similar to the guys. And once Tony finished his sessions with everyone, Raymond compiled all the documentation, and that includes like character testimonies and things like that. Anyone who knew any of these people said they would not make this up. And Raymond later published the book, a book about it called The Allagash Abductions, Undeniable Evidence of Alien Intervention. And the media picked up on it. The Allagash Four ended up even going on talk shows for a while. And they remained close with each other for quite some time until there was a rift between Chuck and the other three men. And in 2016, Chuck said that the other three cut him out of his circle, and he felt like he could finally say that the details of the event were exaggerated. According to Chuck, the fire logs that they put out so that way it would burn forever, they were actually much smaller and could have burnt out on their own within that time, taking away the lost time element that everyone was harping on. He also said that they were, smoking really intense, super concentrated cannabis. But also, if there were drugs involved, I don't think there's a cannabis product out there that would make you hallucinate a whole ass abduction.
I mean, it seems...
Maybe, I don't know.
I guess, but it seems like unlikely that all three of them would have this like shared, or all four of them, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. Seems like it doesn't explain everything.
Also, the other three said that like they were like, we were not under the influence. We had each had one beer that night. They also said that they'd been having issues with Chuck for a long time, and hence their breakup with him, and that him going out, causing this controversy that it wasn't real was just him being vengeful after they broke up with him. Which I could totally see that being like, oh, if you don't want to be my friend anymore, I'm going to tell everyone that like none of this happened.
And the fact that he didn't say none of it happened, right? Or did he?
Yeah, it was exaggerated.
He didn't say like, oh no, we all made it up. Like he's like, no, it was just different than that. It's like, well, that's still scary.
Yeah.
Explain it.
They said Chuck, one of the reasons that they ended things with him was that he once approached them to try to make money off of the story. And his like pitch was that he would try to like announce that the handling of their case was done improperly, like trying to just like stir up shit and cause controversy between like all the people who like were helping them. I don't totally understand. And also MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, they were heavily involved in this, I guess. And so Chuck was trying to, he was just trying to stir shit up so that way they would still be the talk of the town and it would keep interest or something like that. And they thought that from that moment, their relationship with him never really recovered, because why would you want to exploit us for this situation? Chuck went on to say that he is open-minded about alien abductions, but he does not think any of the four of them were abducted that night. And the others who are still friends say that Chuck changed his story just because he wanted to control the narrative. He's also like one of the ones who in his regression said that he like saw aliens and shit at night when he was a kid. So I feel like, are you just saying you lied the whole time, or is that true but this isn't? Jim later put out a statement saying, Jack, Charlie, and I, after all these years, are still in agreement with the event as we remember it. We also accept the results of the hypnotic regression sessions and subsequent polygraph tests as support of an abduction. And then Chuck, his accusations, although they've made some people discredit the story, including like those who doubt like the reliability of hypnosis, that has not stopped the Allagash Four from being one of the most significant abductions in the 20th century. So
wow,
that's the Allagash Four.
I can't believe I don't know this story at all.
I would like to, because you keep mentioning him, I really want to cover Terry Lovelace.
Oh, it scared me so badly, Em, that I like lost sleep, and I don't usually lose sleep over stuff. I was so freaked out, dude. It's scary.
I would love to do that one. It does sound like a lot.
No,
though.
I mean,
it sounds like actually you know it pretty well.
I would be annoying about it, I'm sure. But like Astonishing Legends,
That's fine.
I think did like a 4-part, and their episodes are like 4 hours each.
Yeah.
So, and they interviewed him.
I feel like with Astonishing Legends, you almost never need to hear another version of it.
So
like
thorough.
They cover every, which like this is not me bashing them at all. It's just very different than the way that obviously
100%.
I handle things. But they will tell you like the color of the floor on the of their childhood home, blah blah. Like they will tell you every single
and I
piece
love
of
that. I'm
information
like,
they
tell
can.
me every tiny bit. Like I need to know every little bit. And some people don't like that. And I'm like,
no, I think mine are definitely more crash courses, and if you want to learn more, there's more out
if
there
you're
for
like
you.
really into a topic, especially, like you'll find everything you need from them on the subject.
Yeah, you don't have to do any, like they have watched everything and researched everything, but all their episodes are also like 4 episodes long.
Yeah.
So that's why mine are more bite size, as I just talked for.
I was gonna say ours are bite size,
but
like compared to other podcasts are like fucking hella long. So it's like, we're somewhere.
It's an Astonishing Legends
light
bite size.
Yeah.
It's an
AL light. Okay. So I have a true crime case for you today. This is a story that I've actually wanted to cover since the dawn of this podcast because
oh my God, you really waited a long time.
I know. I've known about it for a long time and I was always upset by it. And I just put it off. Then Saoirse recommended it. I said, you know what? Let's do it. It's about time. This is the story of Blanche Monnier. Now, this takes place in France, so I apologize, is all I'm going to say.
Okay.
But there's a town in west central France called Poitiers, and it is I guess people in the U.S. often say Poitiers, but apparently it's Poitiers.
Okay.
Because the
beautiful
S is silent. I'm sure French people are
stunning.
Like horrific, but anyway, so in the 19th century, this town was an important hub for culture, history, education, and they had a university there called University of Poitiers. And in that time, this is like the late 1800s we're talking, there was a man named Charles-Émile Monnier, and he was greatly involved in the town's cultural history. He was an academic, and he eventually even became the dean of University of Poitiers. And he's up there. I'm telling you this to say, like, he's in the upper echelon of society.
Big dude in charge.
His wife, Madame Louise de Marconi Monnier, was a was so not right. Was a descendant of the French aristocracy. So they are like not a love match, but a status match. She had been born in 1825 to a successful stockbroker, and when she was 22, Louise and Charles married. And as wealthy newlyweds, they were able to make their home in a large, beautiful townhouse in the city of Poitiers. And if they wanted to, take a break from city life, they could enjoy their second home in the countryside, and they would rent out the that property to make additional income when they weren't there. All of this to say they're very socially important. They're at the top of the food chain, and even in not just in Poitiers but also in France, they had a lot of sway. They're descendants of aristocrats. They're very, very important people. Now, public opinion of the family was said to have been extremely positive. Like, people really thought these this family was the creme de la creme, like just great people.
The Kardashians, royalty.
I don't know about Kardashians. I would say they have more of a up and down reputation, but these people were known to be the most like noble, giving, charitable, involved in society family, one of the most top tier families in town.
Like of the upper echelon, they are some of the good guys.
Yeah, tippy top. And they were so involved, societally speaking and in charitable organizations, etc. And public opinion of Madame Louise, the mother, was very positive. However, she was said to be, this is like later we found out, said to be intimidating and demanding at home. So according to their house staff, Charles, the father, would often defer to Louise for most things. And apparently Louise liked it this way because she had a cruelness about her that she reserved only for people under her own roof. So that's nice.
So do you think, was her being super kind, is that like just for show then, you think?
I don't even know that anyone thought they were kind. I think it was just like, oh, they do so much for the town and culture, the arts. Like they're just very, she's very involved and popular and, on all the boards. Like, I don't know that people thought she was like really congenial and like fun to be around. I think people in the fancy hierarchy just thought like, oh, those are some upstanding citizens, That's kind of the vibe I get. And I think also back then, like, it was totally chill to be a fucking cruel person to your staff at home, or like I don't think people were looking down on her for treating her maids with disrespect, So
right, totally.
She was definitely considered more demanding and harsh at home. But yeah, outwardly, she was very polite and upstanding. So, very respected people for their noble lineage, their wealth, Charles's academic position, which made him very smart, Louise's social contributions to the town. And so as a 19th century socialite, it was basically her responsibility to get involved in anything considered high society. We're talking the arts, museums, theater, charities, social causes, church, throwing balls and parties, all that nonsense. That's kind of what she was like A+ at. Mm-hmm. So her appearances and actions, needed to reflect perfectly and properly on her family and Charles, her husband, and themselves as a couple. So every aspect of their lives needed to be up to this like rigid social expectation of the time, of their class, and it seemed like they were nailing it. Even the staff they employed in the home were, as far as Madame Louise was concerned, were representative of their standing in society. Mm-hmm. And so, for an example, a woman named Madame Renard, a maid who worked for the family for 40 years, actually received a medal because of how diligently and well she did her job as a servant in this household. She got a medal for it. I feel like I'd be like, give me a raise, but okay, thanks for the medal. The city apparently had a committee of good works, and so they handed out a medal to the Monnier family maid for her outstanding contributions.
I would like to know what she's like. What qualified, or was it just to keep someone at bay?
No. Okay, you'll actually get it. The award honored her for serving the family faithfully for so long and virtuously all her life. So she had basically devoted her entire adult life to working for this family.
Gotcha. So be a lifer.
Yeah, and assuming, and Saoirse put this note in too, we don't really know necessarily like what this medal like really entailed, but we could kind of assume from the time that it probably means she set like a good example for the younger servants and maids, that she did thorough work, was commendable and dependable, that she was discreet, probably, especially with like upper society, that she didn't, she avoided gossip. She kept the family's personal business private for 40 years, all this, So I think that would be what qualifies. In other words, we would not get this trophy. Even though we
at all. The
so
second
bad.
That you said, I do want it so bad. I just love collecting a tchotchke.
So
but if
shiny.
The requirement is to not gossip, I'm out.
We are done. We're fired. We never even got the job to begin with, let alone a medal for it. Anyway, the award also honored the Monnier family because they had such virtuous staff. And so that reflected directly on them as being good managers of their household. Like you're really keeping all these people under lock and key. Here's a medal, it's like,
So they got a medal for giving someone else a medal?
or this
Okay.
woman got a medal, and then by proxy they got a bigger medal because they're the ones who hired her.
Oh,
it's like,
I see.
oh,
Right,
she
right, right.
reflects
Okay.
our family. It's like, okay, I guess.
I'd be so pissed if I got a medal. Finally, I got something. I got some recognition, and then they like got all of the.
They get to say the thank you speech and their names on the plaque.
Yeah.
It really would suck.
I'd be like, well, I'll just go fucking sit here and play tiddlywinks with my
With
fucking
my
medal.
hoop.
Thank you.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
But also, if you think about it, how else would you get to the point of getting a medal unless you just you just deferred to them your whole life, right?
Exactly.
So it's like we'd never even be, she'd probably be thrilled. She'd probably give them the medal, be like, congratulations, you earned this. And
Yeah.
it's like, wait a minute, this is so fucked up. But yeah, so we would be out of the running immediately. But the point of all this is just to say that the Monnier family, they were very rich, very powerful, very well liked. I mean, they had fucking medals, for God's sake, for hiring diligent staff. Like, yikes. So for the decades they were married until Charles died, and he left Louise with a considerable sum of money, and she was a very comfortable widow. And they had somehow managed all these years to avoid any sort of gossip or scandal that ruined other families of their social strata. But in 1901, that all changed.
Oh.
Now, soon, your other comparisons might be more apt, more of a shift in their standing, one might say.
Interesting. Interessante.
So, here we go. In 1901, and I already said it wrong. In 1901, an anonymous letter was delivered to the Poitiers town public prosecutor / what we know of as an attorney general.
Okay.
And that letter will be revealed shortly, but not yet, because I'm holding that like a carrot, dangling it.
I was gonna say, really, really leading me. I don't know, leading me towards a mystery.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm like just trying to keep it wrapped up and not spoil it all too soon. So, quick recap of this whole family. We have Louise and Charles. They're married. They end up having 2 children. Their first child was a son named Marcel, who was born in 1848. And as far as we know, he was a well-behaved child, grew into a kind and intelligent gentleman of the time. He earned a doctorate in law at the University of Poitiers. He got a job in the government. He married a noble woman from Spain. Like, he's just checking all the boxes for, like, good son in Victorian times, Like, he's nailing it. So, even more checking all the boxes, like he checked the bonus, what do you call it? Bonus points? Yeah, bonus points box when he and his wife moved across the street from his mother. So like,
wow.
He not only marries like the right person from the right social status, they both then move across the street so that she like has her son and daughter-in-law like right there.
Yeah, he's doing what every Jewish mother
like
is just
wishes for. Yes,
for.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I feel like this is that child.
I'm
going
to raise a nice Jewish boy. He's gonna go. He's gonna meet a nice Jewish girl, and she's gonna be all these things, and then they're gonna move right across the street from me, and then he'll always be
my
right
little baby
next to me. My little baby.
Until he has a baby, then that's my little baby. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's exactly it. They like checked all the boxes for like perfect little son, and they lived across the street, and they had a daughter named Marie Dolores, which I think is cute because Marie is French, and I'm assuming Dolores maybe comes from her Spanish background. So that's kind of a fun little name. So the Monnier's second child after Marcel was a daughter named Blanche, as we would say, but it's much prettier in French. Blanche, not Blanche.
Yeah.
But,
I feel like anyone whose name is Blanche comes to the U.S. and we go, "Hey, Blanche," and they're like, "Oh,
like the almonds."
Like, God damn it!
Oh my God.
They're like, "Call me anything else, please. Please don't call me by my name."
It's just the worst name all of a sudden. It's like the most beautiful to the really the worst. I'm sorry if your name is Blanche. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just saying like the way that Americans pronounce it compared to the original
we
French.
really bastardized
like, we're
the
really
sound.
Like, man, let's get back. If your name is Blanche for real, first of all, that's kick-ass because it rhymes with so many things, like branch. Secondly, Can we start calling you Blanche? Because I think if we started the trend and changed your name from Blanche to Blanche, we could really set a new movement going.
You know, but also in French, you can't say branche. You know,
Blanche. Yeah, you're right.
Although that does make branch all of a sudden sound so much better too.
Oh, maybe they do say Blanche and we just don't know it. Wow. Anyway, sorry. I really probably just insulted people. I wasn't trying to. If it makes you feel better, my name is so much prettier in French and German, I think, than English.
I mean, what's your name in German? Just Christina?
Christina. It just sounds better like Christina. It just, I don't know. It rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, but it's that one. It's that sound in German that
Christina Maria.
You know?
Yeah.
How do you say it? Christina?
Christina.
All right. Yeah, that is better. I'm just going to keep saying Christina.
I think it's even prettier in French. It's like,
you're not,
I don't know how to say it, but it's like it's like 2 syllables, I think.
I feel like you're not making fun of anyone with a certain name. You're just making fun of Americans again.
What else is new?
I know.
Oh, boy. Okay, so in any case, Blanche was born in 1849, just a year after her older brother. She was said to be a happy and graceful child, very pretty. She grew up interested in religion. She studied at a Christian school for a time and actually wanted to become a nun. But eventually she left the school and, as the story goes, grew into a beautiful and kind socialite, outgoing, very desirable, had countless suitors vying for her affection. But according to the rumors, when Blanche was 25... she vanished.
Mm-hmm. She vanished.
Stop. She vanished. She vanished at age 25. And suddenly, she was just not out and about at social events. She wasn't at parties, dinners. She wasn't at balls. She wasn't out for walks with her mother. She never visited her sister-in-law or niece across the street. Even her family just stopped speaking about her. And
wow.
Yep, just totally erased from history, basically. And when asked, Madame Louise would only say that her daughter was away. And so people kind of read into that, right? Thinking either she moved abroad or maybe she was sent away to like a boarding school.
My first thought immediately was that she's in like a psychiatric
ward. Exactly. And so people are throwing these rumors around, and eventually, with no like clear answers, just rumors, the story died down and people stopped asking. So years went by. In 1882, Charles Monnier died. Like I said, leaving Madame Louise alone at home with her staff with a pretty considerable sum of money. You know, she was not left wanting. And Blanche was said to live too far away to visit, but, you know, was happy wherever she was. Marcel called on his mother several times a day, and life went on as usual. That is until 25 years after Blanche had disappeared, on May 23rd, 1901, when the chief superintendent of the Poitiers police knocked on the door and told the maid who answered that he must speak with the woman of the house, Madame Louise.
And that woman said, "No, I'm trying to earn my medal. I'm not fucking letting you in." Click and slam the door.
She literally said, "Who do you think I am? Someone who's going to let you call upon the lady of the house and ruin my great streak of 40 years of discreet service?" You're exactly right, because she said, "No, sorry, Madame Louise is ill and on bed rest. Goodbye." And fucking slam that door.
And she made sure everyone knew to whisper it back to the lady of the house so she could get that medal.
You know what? She said it loud enough. She's very ill. She can't see anyone right now.
And she pointed at the trophy case right by the lady's bedroom, being like, "Oh, you see that big gap right there in the trophy case? Oh, look right through there and you'll see her bedroom where she's
look
sitting."
Right in that shining spotlight we have set up for that empty spot in the case. So, she says, "Madame Louise is on bed rest. Sorry, bye." And the superintendent said, "I have to speak with her." And she said, "Sorry, you can go across the street. That's where her son lives. So go speak with Marcel." So Marcel's maid answers the door and he tells the superintendent, "Oh, Marcel is actually ill and on bed rest right now." And you know that first maid was like, "Seriously? You had to steal my fucking line? Like, now they don't believe us." And Just as expected, the superintendent is like, that's weird. So you're both suddenly ill and on bed rest. How convenient. Actually, he said, quote, it's quite odd how everyone in both these houses is unwell. Tell your master that I am the chief superintendent and I have an important message for him. And then Marcel was like, okay, fine. I'll talk to you.
He was like, okay,
Whatever you
sure,
say.
I guess.
I'm super sick, but I guess I'll talk to you. So Marcel agreed to speak with the superintendent, and the superintendent told him, you know, we've had some interesting posts come through to the attorney general yesterday. In fact, an anonymous letter had arrived at the office of the attorney general, and the letter read as follows. Monsieur Attorney General. Monsieur Attorney General, I have the honor to inform you of an exceptionally serious occurrence. I speak of a spinster who was locked up in Madame Monnier's house, half-starved, and living on a putrid litter for the past 25 years. In a word, in her own filth.
So, okay, it's giving like real Rapunzel, or what's the one that's locked in the tower?
That's the one.
Okay. That sounds like that's what I'm immediately associating it with.
Yeah.
But I feel like now that you're saying that, I feel like you have mentioned this story in passing to me.
I think I have.
About like someone who was literally trapped, because it's too weird for her mom to just be like, oh, she's sent away. It'd be one thing if she vanished and like the family was distraught being like, where the fuck is she? But the fact that they didn't care.
Yeah.
That immediately fishy.
I know, but I think back then, like, if you were wealthy, you could just be like, oh, she's just away at boarding school and it's like an asylum or something. Like, I feel like you could just say things like, and nobody would find out. Like, oh, especially because she's a woman. Like, oh, we just sent her off. She's summering, or she's off to Canada or America. Blech, like in the new world. Like, ignore her. You know,
they're calling her Blanche now. Yeah,
they're calling her Blanche. Why would she go to Canada? I don't know. I guess in Canada you could be Blanche still. Go to Montreal.
There's a 50-50 chance at least.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. Anyway, so this is just the horrific letter that arrives. And Marcel is like, that's ridiculous. Of course not. I see my sister every day and she's doing great. She's really well cared for. She's very healthy. And the superintendent said, okay, that's great news, but I would like to see her before I leave.
Yeah, if you see her every day, call her down.
Yeah, like, where is she? Yeah, exactly. And he said, oh, no, guess what? Blanche is sick on bed rest. Yeah, it's like, wow, weird.
She's actually at the metal shop right now, just polishing it for me.
Metal, yeah. No, Marcel says Blanche has been sick for 10 years with a pernicious fever, and so she is not allowed to have any visitors unless the doctor approves it. But thank God the superintendent was like, no, I think I'll stay and see her whether she's sick or not. I just want to make sure nothing fishy's going on here. So Marcel was like, I'll take you to mother, and walked him back across the street because he's like, this is out of my fucking league. Mom, fix the situation. So Marcel and the superintendent walk across the street, and the mom, Louise, was like, I don't know. I think like you can just trust it and take our word for it. Take us at our word, you know, she's fine. She's just like has a little bit of a fever. But finally, the superintendent said, I need you to understand I'm not leaving until I see her. Like, well,
also, if someone tells you, she's had a fever for 10 years, it's not like you can think, oh, well, I'll just wait till she's...
Call me when she feels
I'm going to
better.
sit in the hall.
Literally, it's so true.
Yeah.
So he's like, I mean, now or never. And it's not never, because I'm going to stay here until you show me that she's okay. And so finally, the mom was like, all right, come follow me, and leads the superintendent upstairs to the 3rd floor. And they're in this dark area, and the superintendent finds his door, but it's padlocked.
Oh, God.
And he's like, this is really alarming. But he manages to break the door down, and there's barely, when the door is broken down, the stench that emanates from this room is so overpowering that he can barely stay put.
And what year was this?
1901.
Okay. In my mind, things were already a little stinky in 1901 anyway. So, like, they were used to a whole level of smell that we aren't. And then on top of that, this had to be
was like very,
wow.
very, very, very disturbing immediately. So he goes into the room and he has to leave right away when he's hit with the smell. And a few minutes later, he finally, he pulled himself together, so to speak, and steeled himself and went back in. And according to a report written at the time, the superintendent said, quote, Blanche, whom we could not see, was lying on a poor pallet and covered with a blanket, all repugnantly filthy. Across this pallet ran insects and vermin, feeding on the feces on the unfortunate woman's bed. We tried to uncover her face, but she clung to the blanket, which covered her entirely, shrieking loudly like a wild woman. Unable to stay in the room any longer due to its repulsive filthiness, we withdrew.
Yeah, I can't imagine the like just infection possibilities alone.
Yeah. Shocking.
Like if you have one cut or one sore and you're just living in a room full of
fecal matter and rotten
fecal matter.
food. Yeah.
So was the rest of this is like so not even
no,
like
though it's very important. The rest of the house was fucking spotless.
Okay, I was gonna say like how are rats getting in and out of this place?
That's so relevant that it's actually mentioned multiple times in sources, because this was not a case of they're just unhygienic and don't have the money. Like, this was such a high proper woman with a whole team of maids. The rest of the house was fucking spotless, and like she herself, Louise, was fully presentable, like societally presentable. Just being at home, was like fully made up, fully done. And so this,
and also people are coming in and out all the time. If you're that big, you've got people coming over for even meetings or
whatever the
things
fuck, charity stuff. And so this is basically like complete contrast to the rest of the house and to herself.
Was she high up enough in the building that like no one would hear her if she like screamed for help or something?
Not quite. So yeah, we'll get there. So later that day, great question. Later that day, the magistrate reported to examine Blanche and her living conditions himself. He walked in and he ordered the window to be open to let in light and fresh air, because the window had actually been boarded and padlocked shut and covered. So there was not a ray of light in that room. Wow. The shutters had been closed for so long, they had to be removed from their hinges in order to open. When the light shined in, the magistrate could finally see what was going on in this room and observe Blanche herself. She was lying in bed, completely naked. There were no clothes in the room. She was visibly, dangerously malnourished, and she was now 52 years old. When they took her in, they realized who she was, because at first they just got reports, this mysterious anonymous letter saying, there's a woman being held captive in this house. And, they go in, they rescue this woman, they take her to the hospital, and they're like...
And then they realize she's like a royal or like an upper crust lineage.
Yes, they like put the dots together and go, wait, this is the daughter that was missing 25 years ago, that people just kind of... brushed off and moved on. And so now they're realizing that this woman has been in there since she's in her 20s, and now she's 52, and she weighs 55 pounds.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's how malnourished she was. Her hair was waist length and matted as if it had not been brushed or washed in years.
Oh my God.
The magistrate later said the unfortunate woman was lying completely naked on a rotten straw mattress. All around her was formed a sort of crust made from excrement, fragments of meat, vegetables, fish, and rotten bread. We also saw oyster shells and bugs running across Mademoiselle Monnier's bed.
I don't even know how you like lung infections alone of breathing that in. I'm like, how do you
I mean, yeah, I imagine her body had shut down by this point, being not shut down completely, obviously, but like being 55 pounds. You're not getting any sort of nourishment.
But even but bugs all over her, and like sleeping in bugs, sleeping in rats, sleeping in, and then just breathing all that stuff in. And I don't know what's like the worst part of it.
Yeah, it's all very, very, very horrific. The magistrate inspected the rest of the house, and like I was saying, everything was clean and organized. Madame Louise herself was carefully groomed. It seemed like Blanche alone was subject to like the filth and neglect. This was not a family issue. This was just for a special torture reserved for her. So on May 24th, Marcel and Madame Louise, so Madame Louise and her son, were arrested. And rumors surrounding Blanche's horrific imprisonment and neglect started swirling. Of course, especially with these people being like the most upstanding members in town, you know. And it was said that she had the story that people had started kind of telling, and this is the most commonly told version of the story. So it's unclear how much of this is true versus just kind of like people adding on to the story. But it was said that she had fallen in love with an attorney who lived nearby. He was like 14 years older than her, and he had no money and no title. And so her mom disapproved. And he was also a Protestant, and Blanche came from a long line of noble Catholics. And so when she refused to break off this relationship with this attorney, the story goes that Madame Louise locked her away as punishment and said, "I'll let you out when you agree you'll break off this relationship." And she refused. And so it's hard to say whether that's the truth. That is the story most people tell. It's even on the Wikipedia, but like some of the sources have said, you know, it's unlikely. He might not have even really existed, or if he did, which I kind of believe he did exist, it might have been embellished as part to make it more like romantic. Sure. Like, oh, she was locked away, because it's hard to believe that after that long of being tortured that you wouldn't just say, yeah, sure, I'll break up with him. But the story is that she refused for 25 years to like,
because she loved him so much she would never deny their.
And I sort of feel like that, and Saoirse wrote the same thing, like I sort of feel like that takes away a little bit from the actual horrific story, which is abuse and neglect, which is not so romanticized, you know. So anyway, that's just my thought on it. But that was the story that got picked up, which it may well be true. I'm really not sure. Some people claim.
Well, maybe. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I would love to hear what your thoughts are.
I was going to say, I feel like not only does it feel like a romantic story for the time, but it could have also been like a noble story of like how proudly Catholic these people were.
True.
And like it almost put them in a good light of like, you must.
And Catholics love like
rely on your family,
love
or
a martyr
stick with your
story.
family.
I feel like, it feels like it's turned into this kind of romantic, like anything for love, when like that doesn't quite.
Yeah, it's like, okay, but we're like not paying attention to the fact that something evil happened to you.
Yeah. Or it's like, it doesn't have to be such a dramatic reason for the evil. Like sometimes people just do evil things because they're bad people and they like to harm people. I don't know. So it's hard to say. I mean, it could very well be true. I really don't know. And most of the stories are told, and that's how I always knew it until this research, that she was in love with this guy and her mom disapproved. But so, of course, there are all sorts of versions, you know, that maybe Blanche was pregnant out of wedlock and, you know, they sent the child away, but there's really nothing to prove that. Marcel, however, her brother, who's only a year older than her, had a totally different story. According to him, when Blanche was young, she began to experience what she believed were religious visions. And as she grew up, she began to experience what may have been symptoms of psychosis. And although we don't know now, I believe a couple of the sources mention that she was diagnosed with schizophrenia later in life. So it's hard to say if that was something, you know, maybe triggered or exaggerated by this like horrific abuse, or if this was already part of her life and that's what led to the abuse.
Could she have been, again, everything we say in this episode does not justify anything bad that happened here.
We're just trying to understand it.
Were they like, what, maybe do we find out if there was actually like a mental illness going on and like the family was too ashamed?
Well, that's what I mean, is like she was diagnosed with schizophrenia, but I don't know if that was something that there's no way to know, like, did she have that before she was locked away and that's why she was locked away? Or is like that something that emerged while she was imprisoned for 25 years, you know, like schizophrenia, is that something like as a result of this, or is that why they put her up there?
I also don't know if I could even trust that she had any mental conditions. Like if for all we know that like her parents paid a professional to say something so that way they would look better. I don't know. Or
I don't know.
do we know for sure she had an illness?
No, we don't know anything. I mean, we know afterward,
Yeah.
yes, she was diagnosed with all these things, but like again, it's hard to say, is that a result of all this trauma, or is that
Right.
that like pre-existing, and it's like chicken or the egg. Like is this what led them to behave this way, or is it the opposite? Yeah, it's hard to know, but either way, people think it's probably some symptoms of psychosis if what her brother Marcel is telling is the truth, because he could be lying and saying, oh yeah, like she was totally crazy, so we locked her up there. And so it's hard to say if he's even telling the truth, but if he is, what he describes sounds more like psychosis or early onset schizophrenia.
I would imagine, something had to happen to her mentally. Like, think of like the people in prison who go into solitary for like a week and start feeling like they're losing themselves.
I guess what I'm saying is afterwards she was definitely mentally ill. Like she had severe.
We just don't know if there was something before.
So I just don't know, like, even though she was given a schizophrenia diagnosis after all this, I don't know if that's like something that started when she was 20 and that's why they put her up there, or if that was a result of being locked away in solitary for 25. It's like nobody really knows how truthful this storyline is, but it makes sense to me. Like, okay, she was kind of not acting like a proper woman should act and had some sort of fits or hallucinations, and her family was like, well, that can't be. So we're going to lock her away in a closet, essentially. Yeah, apparently the room was about the size of smaller than like an office cubicle. That's how tiny it was. Like she was basically just enough room to lay down.
Oh
yeah,
my
it's
God.
really, really horrific. And so Marcel claimed, oh no, it's not about a love story. But when Blanche was young, she began to experience what she believed were religious visions and what we now think may have been psychosis. And the doctors who treated Blanche told her family that she was, quote, mad, and she always would be. Essentially, like, there's no treating this, is what they were told. Like, this is just how she is, and she's, quote unquote, mad, and it's uncurable. Sorry. And that
it's still wild that they couldn't just like make sure she like took a bath and like
no,
had some
that's the
food.
thing. It's
Wow.
like exactly.
Insane.
It ends up like not at all being about this. It just ends up being like it doesn't even matter why they did it, right? It's like it's
like if you felt like for her safety she needed to be locked up somewhere, okay, but
Yeah.
like no social
those
interaction,
arguments
no
like
food,
don't hold weight at all to me. I totally agree.
like a bed that's not
Like
rotting
you can't
and full of
show me that and say,
rats.
"Oh no, this is for her own good." Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And so the doctors said like this is uncurable, and so Charles, her father, before he passed, decided the only thing they could do was lock Blanche in a room to hide her away. And according to Marcel, she sometimes stood naked in front of the window, but also like they didn't give her clothes. So yeah, no shit, she stood
Right.
naked. And so they started padlocking the window closed. And Marcel testified that he really wanted to move Blanche to what he referred to as a nursing home. I mean, imagine like a psychiatric hospital in the late 1800s, right?
Yeah.
But even so, like they were so wealthy, they could have provided her with a staff. They could have sent her to like a fancy place.
They could have literally given her her own home, like her own
And
facility
just
or
like
something
paid
with
for
her own
nurses. Yeah.
Yeah, they could have paid for a current facility to clear out so they could have the entire thing if they
Nope,
wanted.
but
Like,
Charles did not want his child to be mentally ill or,
Yeah.
different.
It feels like this is more like an insecurity about social
totally.
status, that something's wrong with them or something.
That's at least the story
it's
Marcel
like-
is pitching. Like, listen, I didn't want it to be this way, but my parents did. And it's like, okay, but you're an adult. And anyway. So yeah, it doesn't really make sense. Like, oh, well, this was for her own good because like they had the money to really provide for her. But Charles refused because like he didn't want this reflected on poorly on his family. And so when he died, Madame Louise insisted on upholding her dead husband's wishes. And Marcel claimed that no matter how much he argued with his mother, she refused to consider moving Blanche elsewhere. And investigators pretty much put together that she was ashamed that Blanche was ill, and she would rather just hide her daughter away, like to near death, rather than reveal her family secret.
Was there like did her siblings did her brother did they at least talk through the door to each other? And did he could she say can you go tell mom I need more
I
fucking
don't
bread,
think so. No,
please?
I
Or
think she was just put away, and every now and then.
so I made a lot of jokes about this fucking metal, but now I'm like, why wasn't the maid at least knocking on the door, being like, "Are you
Because she's
okay?" Or
discreet. She
sneaking
got
her
a
more
medal for
food?
40 years of not spreading a fucking single gossip.
Yeah, but I mean, even still, I'm surprised nobody in the house at least knocked on the door every now and then to be like, "Are you
I mean, they
alive?"
might have.
Or
I don't know. I don't know if we would know that.
who was bringing her food when
I
she
assume a servant or maid would just toss it
Okay,
in, is what I guess, but I don't know. Um,
wild.
she was quote unquote sane when she was found, but she was like nonverbal for a long time. You know, like
Hmm.
if you haven't spoken to anybody in 25 years, presumably, yeah, you're going to be like shell shocked and probably not verbal for a while. Um, but yeah, so although Marcel claimed he had like argued on her behalf, he was also a grown up and should have fucking interceded and done something instead of like helping his mom cover up this horrible, horrible thing, like for just torturing his little sister. It's disturbing to me. He also testified that he visited Blanche frequently and read to her. And he said, "Oh, the smell that never bothered me. And because my eyesight is impaired, I couldn't really see how bad it was in there, so I just didn't know." It's like, yeah, right. And
Yeah.
investigators were
Okay.
like, "Oh, your eyesight's bad? That's weird because I know you love to paint watercolor." And he goes, "Yeah, well, seeing landscapes and trees is a totally different thing."
Yeah, you just don't know enough about
Yeah, sorry, you
eyes.
don't know about
About
art or eyes, so you wouldn't understand.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure someone of high society at the time would have had a problem with the smell.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the fact that the investigator had to leave and come back because he was
Yeah.
so shaken by the smell alone, but whatever. He said that his family never did anything against Blanche's will or her wishes. She wanted all of that. And he just said, "Oh, we did all this because it's what she wanted." And he wanted to avoid upsetting her and causing a scene. She didn't want a window, so they boarded it up for her. I'm like, this is crazy talk.
Which, if your whole thing is that maybe she's mentally ill, then why are you listening to her
Yeah, then
demands that
exactly.
if she is so sick that you think she is not of sound mind and endangered
Yeah.
herself, then why are you listening
Then
to
why
that?
are you
Your
like,
whole
great idea, we won't
and
feed you or open a window?
I don't know what the rules were back in the day in a home of high society, but when I was a little kid, you better believe I was snooping through everyone's fucking house. How did a little kid not walk by the room and go, "Oh my god, that smells pretty bad. What's going on in there?"
Yeah,
Or
I
hear a sound or
I
something.
think it was probably just because it was hidden away on the third floor. They could barely see this door. It was, I'm telling you, like the size of a small walk-in closet. So it's like
That's
just tucked
crazy.
away and nobody would be up there. You know, I'm assuming that would be quote unquote servants' quarters, right? Like the third story.
Yeah.
Um, and the servants clearly knew about it. So they probably just were like, well, that's Blanche's room. I don't know. It's horrifying. So he basically claimed, well, she wanted it to be this way, and we didn't want to. I mean, going off what you said, like his explanation for why they just did what she said is because he's like, well, we didn't want her to like freak out and cause a scene, and if we did something against her wishes, she would start having fits, and it would. He's like, so we just wanted to keep the peace, so we did what she wanted. I don't believe it. However, like I kind of alluded to when you asked earlier, there were testimonies from people over the years who had heard Blanche during those 25 years in the attic bedroom. Some witnesses had heard someone screaming for freedom. People on the street sometimes heard her screaming from her bedroom, and one witness heard her cry, "What have I done to be locked up? I don't deserve this horrible
Oh,
torture. God must not exist then to let his creatures suffer in this way, and no one to come to my rescue."
wow.
And it's just really horrific because people would get snippets and like wonder, and then nothing would be done, and nobody would find anything, and you didn't know where it was coming from. But people definitely heard her screaming over the years. She also wrote on her walls. One passage that was still legible during the investigation read, "One must live and die in prison all one's life." And Marcel said, "Oh, he said the inscriptions on the walls were so unimportant that he never read them."
Well, how could he? He doesn't have good eyes.
Good point. He said all these screams had no meaning. In my sister's mouth, these words have no value. She only said them at moments of crisis and madness. She never called for help or demanded her freedom in front of me.
Well, she was so busy being locked up, she never said it in front of me.
Exactly. She never said she didn't
like,
want to be locked away forever. Like, what?
I mean, I was downstairs holding my ears and closing my eyes so I would never hear it if she did say something,
But that's
she didn't say it. And also, like, it'd be one thing if he was like a toddler when this happened and like he grew up hearing like she's evil or something. But if he's a year older than her and she got locked away like 25, he was almost 30.
He was like already, I'm sure, married or getting married and having his like eldest son dream child ways, you know, and just let it go, let it be that way. It's horrific. So that's what he kept pushing, like this story that Blanche was this incoherent mad woman who never truly desired freedom, never desired clean sheets, clean hair, hygiene, food. He said that she even refused to be exposed to sunlight, which is why, for her preference, they took the window out, covered the window up. And when Blanche was bathed at the hospital, the staff had a different view because they shaved her hair, they put her in new clothes, they cleaned her, bathed her, they sat her by a window where the sun was streaming in, and she just stared out the window and whispered how lovely it is.
Oh,
it's like,
oh my God.
You can't fucking tell me that you did this because she wanted it. Like, that's the wildest thing to me.
Oh my
and
God.
When questioned about this, Marcel, her brother, said, oh, she must have been temporarily shocked out of her madness. That's all. But don't worry, she'll get back to it. It's like so blatantly cruel and abusive. But Madame Louise said that Blanche was allowed to go anywhere in the house. She had free reign, but she preferred to stay not only in her room, but in her bed for 25 years. And she just had never had a desire to leave. So that's why they left her there. And if that is the case, then she's clearly sick and you need to get her help. She's your child. She's another human. Like, okay. Anyway.
Wow.
When the investigators told Madame Louise that her maids claimed they sometimes asked permission to bathe Blanche and clean her bedding, and Louise said, no, you are not allowed to clean her bedding or wash her hair. Like, the maids were trying to help in some instances, and she said no. And when the investigator said, well, that's what the maids told us, that you didn't let them clean her, she said to investigators that her maids were liars and hussies.
Oh my. Also, like, and this is such an obvious thing to say now, but just a reminder that, like, this absolutely takes away any credibility there was of, like, all the generous things that she was doing for society. It's like you clearly don't care about other people.
Yeah, there's no empathy there. I mean,
you're just doing it for status.
It's just ridiculous. That's kind of why I was trying to say, like, she was like just the top tier, like, social hierarchy, not necessarily like a queen bee type, you know, like her fall from grace was going to be painful.
The way that this probably hit every fucking newspaper. Oh my God.
Imagine coming to work the next morning and being like, did you guys hear? And they say, hear what? And you're like, I'm about to reveal the wildest.
Everyone's shoving their copy of the paper into their face.
I mean, Jesus Christ. This would be especially in a small town, like what a... I mean, it's not that small of a town, but, you know, in small circles, like these high society circles. Wow. Okay, so Madame Louise and Marcel continually insisted that it was Blanche's instincts to prefer the dark, to use foul language, to make messes, and to avoid eating. But the nurses and nuns who cared for her in the hospital found her quite the opposite. They described her as gentle, delicate. They even described her using words like childlike. And they said she just truly enjoyed her meals, and she started rapidly gaining weight when she arrived at the hospital, which is so fucking sad. Like, 25 years she hasn't
so
had...
possible the whole time.
Yeah, she hasn't had just plain nutrition in 25 years. They eventually learned that they could leave Blanche alone while the staff cared for other patients, and she, even though her family kept warning everybody that she was going to freak out and cause this huge scene and a mess, she never did. And when she first arrived at the hospital, she did once relieve herself in her bed and clothes, but then when they taught her how to use a chamber pot again, she was thrilled and said, thank goodness that I have access to this now because she just
Well,
was
also,
living in
like,
her own filth.
she was also probably fucking petrified of saying anything wrong and immediately having to go away again. So, like, on top of her just being a good person, like, the last thing she's going to do right now is cause a stir. Like, I mean, and also after, like, relieving herself on herself as a, as someone who has only been able to do that for the
Yeah.
last 20 years, she probably, like, lost muscle memory to even
Yes,
hold it
exactly.
at that
She had
point.
forgotten how to use a chamber pot. Like they really had to like say, "Hey, here, this is here for you now."
Oof.
But I will also kind of do devil's advocate of what you said. Like, if you were this traumatized and like, if you did have a mental illness, like you might show up and make a huge scene and tear shit up. You know, like who knows?
That's a good
Like,
point. Yeah, like, it's so
I don't know. Yeah, like I
overstimulating.
don't know how I would even deal with this without this alleged or potential schizophrenia situation. Like even the most quote unquote sane person at the time, I imagine would you could predict how they'd
I mean,
react.
I also the way I already know how it would go if I were in a situation that was where I was being told that, like, I was never docile enough or whatever, and that I was locked away. And I mean, I can't obviously fathom that, but I imagine I would just be crying nonstop out of either relief that it's maybe over, or fear that what if it's not,
Yeah.
but then also joy that I'm seeing this. But then again, then I would be diagnosed with hysteria or
Yeah,
something,
who
because I would just
knows?
be
It's like
crying.
all
I
bets are
mean,
off. Like, how does anyone know what to do in this situation? Like the people caring for her, her herself. Like, how does anyone know like what to do in this situation? I feel like they're just it's all just so shocking. And she probably feels like she's like in an alternate dimension all of a sudden. Like she wrote on her wall, one must live and die in prison one's whole life. So she clearly has resigned herself to this.
I also wonder socially, like, because I like to think, oh my God, somebody it just went through this. Obviously, I'm going to help them. But what if you're, this is such a micro problem. But imagine if you're someone who's trying to help her, but you find out that, like, your own career is in jeopardy or something. Like, she could pull the purse strings in some way and hurt you for helping save her or take care of her. I feel like that would be one of my first thoughts if I was, like, a nurse taking care of her. I'd be like, oh, what if because we're helping her, now the family is going to, now that they've been found out, they're going to
I
stop
mean,
funding
yeah,
the
but I feel
hospital
like
or
the nuns
something.
and stuff are like, I don't care. I mean, I don't know. And
Oh, right,
especially
nuns. Yes,
because
okay.
especially because both of them are in jail now. Like it doesn't mean they can't have an effect, but I don't think their power is that impressive anymore to people. Like I don't think the hospital's going to take their money anymore, once they've been
True. I would be so paranoid about, like, the family of the town knowing that, like, what's going to happen if they find out that we want to get. But
I
yeah, you're totally
mean,
right. They're already in prison. So
yeah, I
whatever.
think they're not even a blip on the radar at this point. So yeah, they're like taking care of her and saying she's just childlike, she's delicate, she loves to eat, she's gaining weight rapidly. She's just so happy to be free and be, calm and have sunshine and have fresh clothes. And so they did not experience her the way that Marcel kept like warning the nurses and the nuns that she would act. And although her mother and brother kept saying, well, Blanche would be naked and standing in the window that way, hospital staff observed that she was actually extremely modest, probably from this childhood religious ambition she had. And she even wore often extra clothing to cover herself up. She even put a scarf over her head, like around her head. And, it makes me think like it seemed like she didn't have clothing in her room. So it's like now,
Yeah.
of course, she wants to be covered up like she hasn't been for 25 years.
Oh my God. And also, like, not even warm, because the blanket she was using was just riddled
Rotted.
with
Yeah.
disease
Yeah.
and rotting away. And I mean, she's never,
Like the comforts are gone.
in half her life, she's never known a single
Just
comfort.
like comfort. Yeah. Yeah. And so
Wow.
it seemed clear to her care team that whatever Blanche's family was saying that Blanche had done to herself was actually something her family had done to her. And she likely had stopped using the bathroom because she had no access to a toilet. She stopped bathing because she wasn't allowed to. She stopped eating because she wasn't given food. And so in the hospital, suddenly her condition improved significantly, and the staff really liked her. And Marcel's and Madame Louise's defenders, including a psychiatrist, insisted that Blanche was insane and feeble-minded. But the nurses and nuns were like, no, sorry, she's not. It also seemed to be true that Blanche did sometimes exhibit erratic behavior in which she would shout, scream, break things. But like, again, that's not surprising to me that somebody who'd gone through that would have erratic behavior. But a priest, along with investigators on the case, also made the excellent point that who cares if she did anything erratic? That does not mean she deserved 25 years.
That's
like,
a great
even if
point.
they're right and she had been, quote unquote, unwell and insane or whatever words they used, that doesn't mean she should have been locked away like that for 25 years. So
She's
the
still a
argument
person.
is moot. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's still, and in fact, some could argue it's even worse if she needs your help so badly because she's ill and you're putting her
Right
through this.
now she's like deteriorating even
Yeah,
faster
'cause
without any support. Yeah.
I mean, that's so anyway, it's just like at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter why they were claiming that they did this. It's just bad no matter what. But yeah, like I said, this same priest said Blanche's vulnerability made the neglect that much more egregious. And that especially because they had this responsibility, they had the funds, they had the means to care for her, and they just didn't, you know. They also believed that because she was so mild-mannered in the hospital, all this bad behavior her family reported, if it was true at all, was probably just caused by the stress of living like that. So any like fits she might have had, it's like, yeah, you locked her in a closet. So even if that's true, which it might just be Marcel making shit up, then of course she did. Of course she reacted negatively when you locked her away for decades. But in any case, Blanche was transported to a hospital in May, and she was photographed while there. And the photographs are still online. They're very disturbing. She's deeply emaciated. She's 55 pounds. Her hair is, falling out, falling apart. It's very, very disturbing. So I just want to warn everyone, if you're going to look it up. When this picture hit newspapers, people flipped.
I'm sure.
There were angry crowds gathering outside of Madame Louise's jail cell, shouting, demanding justice for Blanche. And Madame Louise had actually been ill for some time, and the stress...
Was she?
I know, and the stress was getting to her. Okay, so will you be a little bit empathetic maybe for a minute?
I'm just saying, for her to be sick at the beginning of the story...
She's so full of it, yeah. She asked to be released from jail awaiting her trial because she couldn't take the stress. And they did not release her from jail, and she ended up actually having a heart attack 2 weeks after her arrest because of the uproar.
Well, the stress of being found out. She knew she was
exactly like
in
you were
trouble.
caught, and so you had a heart attack because of the stress of that.
But the nerve of her, how long was she actually imprisoned
13
for?
13 days, I think. 13 to 14.
And she was just so inconvenienced and uncomfortable in 13 days, but the 25 years of what she did to her.
Good point. Well, wait till you hear what happened to Marcel.
Oh God. Okay.
So now she's passed away, the mother, and Marcel is now the only one left to face trial, right? So that began October 7th, 1901, and the court heard testimonies from staff in the Monnier household, and it seemed that caring for Blanche had actually started off pretty well. She was attended to by an experienced nurse named Marie Fazy, and testimonies about Marie and her professionalism as a nurse were varied. Some said that she was a doting and skilled nurse who cared for Blanche so well that sometimes Blanche was well enough to get downstairs, see her family, play the piano. But according to these same testimonies, it was only when this nurse died in 1896 and Madame Louise refused to hire another skilled nurse with proper training that suddenly Blanche deteriorated and she kind of fell into this horribly desperate, vulnerable situation. It was said that Madame Louise repeatedly hired young maids without medical and psychiatric training who were frightened by Blanche, especially when Blanche became agitated and like broke things or tore her clothes off. And none of the maids ever stayed for very long, according to these testimonies. And Madame Louise herself did not seem interested in any care for Blanche, like didn't seem interested in hiring anybody or caring for her herself. So just let her deteriorate up there. But others said that this nurse, Marie Fazy, actually drank in excess and did not care for Blanche well, as everyone was claiming, and that this whole time Blanche was in this desperate state with no care. So it's like, it varies like how badly she was mistreated in the 25 years, but either way,
Pretty
Pretty
darn.
darn. And
Pretty darn.
Blanche had last been seen by a doctor in 1896, which was actually 5 years before her discovery. And there was like nothing came out of that, or nothing came from that. And so the family had basically just abandoned any effort to get her well or take care of her at all. Sometimes her niece, Marie Dolores, would come over and ask after Blanche and how she was doing. And according to Marie Dolores, her grandmother would always just say, "Oh, she's fine."
It's not even like you can actually lock someone up and forget about them, because every single person is going to ask
So
you how
how's your
daughter is.
daughter? That's mysteriously in Canada, maybe. Yeah.
For 25 years. Someone had
And
to
the fact
be
that
like,
she's claiming, "Oh, she's fine," it's like, okay, well, what else is up with her? I haven't seen her in decades. Like, any news?
I mean, like, I understand that, like, it was a different time, and that, like, she could have really just, and also it's a totally different, like, wealth class where, like, maybe you really do just go away and never come home. But if I had a friend who had a kid, like, if the last time I saw Leona was 25 years
Yeah.
ago, I'd be like, where is she?
I
Like,
said, "Oh,
can
she's
I have a
just
picture
somewhere."
of her? Yeah, I'd be like, can I see a picture? Like, is she, like, where did you must know something about her?
Yeah, and that's why, like, that the servant staff being so discreet, right, is like such a icky thing now. It's like they were forced to keep this secret.
Yeah. And even if I were a friend of the family, I would almost be offended that, like, if the next time I see Leona, she's 29 or whatever, I'd be like, what's going on? Why don't you
Yeah,
want me
like
to know
there's
what your
something
kid looks like?
happening either with me, with you, with your child. There's something going on.
Yeah, I would take it as a personal attack eventually. I'd be like, why don't you want to share your family with me?
Yep, nope. People did
Oof.
not pick up on it. So she was fine. That's what she told people. And all that was truly clear in the end, which is still there are a lot of unanswered questions, is that when Blanche was rescued in 1901, she was in truly, truly deplorable conditions that no person, whether they quote unquote want it that way or not, should be subjected to this. Sorry, there's no excuse. And nothing she might have done, any psychiatric diagnosis, could have justified this. Like you were saying, a prison cell is a safer, cleaner, happier place to be than this like family made prison that they created, and just the amount of filth and neglect. And I mean, imagine she probably got sick all the time, like with infections, colds. I mean, imagine how miserable that life would be. It's terrible. So whether it's like a week or 25 years, like it's just unacceptable on every count. And Marcel, the brother, right, he's the only one remaining to be put on trial, and after his trial, he's sentenced to 15 months in prison, but he's a lawyer and very rich, and his lawyers immediately appeal, arguing that Blanche was legally their mother's responsibility, not Marcel's, and Marcel had no obligation to intervene with his sister's situation.
Oh.
And the appeal was granted.
Okay.
And Marcel faced no consequences.
Of course.
And the public was outraged, but there's not much they can do. So Blanche spent the final 12 years of her life in a hospital where she was reportedly well cared for and content. She told the staff she did not want to see her brother ever again, and she did not want to return to her home ever again.
Fair enough.
And she and Marcel both died in 1913. Relatively young, I would say. They were probably in their 60s. Today, though, the truth of Blanche's story is rarely told. I think a lot of it is, and we don't even know what's the real truth in a lot of ways. Unfortunately, the only thing we know is how horrible this mistreatment was. But if you Google Blanche Monnier, there are often before and after pictures, like this picture of this really beautiful, like put together Victorian woman with this like very graceful hair. Those are not Blanche Monnier, even though every article claims that's like before, but that's not a picture of her. It's like some other.
Are there any pictures of her before? It seems like she was never loved,
so.
even before she got put away.
I know. I don't think there are any, like, not online at least, or not easily accessible.
Was there even a moment that got announced of like the day she got locked in and never came out? Because I have a feeling this room was like a very long timeout place that she used to go, and eventually her mom was like, actually, I'm just not going to.
No, there was actually There was an article I read where that mentioned that she went out for some dinner, some social dinner. She ended up getting a fever, like she got sick and got a fever, and that social outing was the last time she was ever seen outside the house. So whether or not, it's
Wow.
unclear whether or not she was just inside and like for the first few years, maybe she could roam the house freely, but she did not leave the house after that event. Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, this beautiful young woman, the before picture that you might be picturing, like that I'm picturing, because I've seen it so many times, is not actually Blanche Monnier. There's two that go around. Neither of them are her. So a lot of this is like sensationalized about like her saying she would. Oh, and the other part about the guy, remember the lawyer that she had fallen in love with who didn't have much money and her mother didn't approve. So that story goes that she wouldn't break off the relationship or the engagement. And her mother said, I won't let you out until you do. And then the man actually ended up dying, if it is the same man, ended up dying 10 to 15 years, I forget which direction, before she was released, before she was discovered. And so even when he was dead, her mom was like, oh, will you break off the engagement? No. Even knowing that he was dead. So it's like
That's extra sick.
at that point, you just don't want this.
Well, because at that point
It's
she's
too
betrayed
late.
the family, right? So
Well, and now she gets out. What do you do to explain this?
yeah. I do wonder if the guy was real, because I feel like if she magically went missing, he would cause a fuss.
Well, so
in
the
town.
story is that like they were kind of starting to get to know each other. They really liked each other, and then the mom was just like, oh, she went away, because I mean, it was very obvious the mom did not approve of him. So it's like pretty easy to believe that like her mom just said, nope, not allowed. And she's like, okay, so I was shipped off to America for a few years and then he passed away during the time of her imprisonment. So we don't really know if that's the true story, but that's usually the one that's told. But as Saoirse made such a good point of here, the true story is far less romantic, but more common. A disabled woman in this, especially in that time, and even today, occasionally was neglected and abused because of family shame and pride, and so that's disturbing in and of itself. And that is the story of Blanche Monnier.
Wow.
Terrible.
Definitely. I mean, awful, but also very captivating. In that, like that there's not a boring part to that story.
I mean,
that's all very.
Talk about like what's the phrase I was gonna say?
It starts very high society gossip girl, and then it ends with like just torment and
just like abuse. It's
everything terrible.
And like I see why people kind of make it like more glamorous, like she did this for love, and it's like, no, she didn't do it at all. Nothing she did.
It's one of those revisionist histories.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like it's spinning it. And Box of Oddities did this a long time ago, and I re-listened to it recently, and I like the way she put it of like, they're talking about her so actively, like as if she's the like she did something that triggered this situation, when in reality she didn't do anything. Her parents, her mother and father and brother, her whole family abused and neglected her, and it doesn't matter what she did or said, or that's irrelevant. It's like, when a woman's sexually assaulted and you're like, well, she was wearing a really short skirt, it's like, that's not the point. It shouldn't matter. She should be able to walk down the street naked for all I care. It doesn't give you the right to behave this way or treat somebody this way. So yeah, I kind of like that we got a little more detail on the real history of it, even though it's like less sensational and just sadder. But that's how I think a lot of these stories are. So,
wow. Well, good telling it.
Well, thank you. This was quite an episode. Wow, that's a long one.
Wow, a long one. Okay, we won't keep people any longer than that, unless you are part of Patreon and you like to listen to us talk even longer than this. And you can head over to our After Hours, After Dark. What is it now?
After Dark.
After Dark. And you can hear us ramble about something that is unscripted. Not that this is fully scripted. But the other part on behind Patreon has no rules.
No rules.
So
But we usually talk about something, true crime or paranormal usually. I will say sometimes we go off the rails and do a personality quiz, but
Sometimes we just go on Zillow and look at houses together, you
but
know?
sometimes we read all the places and houses you could find buried treasure. So, we have a lot of fun over there.
All right. Well, head over there if you want to hear more of this, and otherwise we'll see you next week. And
That's
why
we
drink.